at some point somebody will come up with a tab-proof computer, or at least just sell it. Like, you can have 1 million tabs, and the computer will work flawless.
No, because I recognize that it's a sickness of mine. I would not buy that computer.
That would be a selling point. You're like, oh, they got one of those. Finally, I was about to turn a corner and fix my problem.
It would be like I have a drug problem and my worst enemy is like, I got a solution for you. It's more drugs. Here we are, Abe Cast Iron Brains, a podcast that can currently, somewhat dubiously maybe, claim to be experiencing exponential growth in its week-to-week paying subscriber base. Join the fun at brainiron.substack.com. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here, too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how Lori's doing. Tonight is Monday, January 29th, 2024. Happy birthday to friend of the show. Not sure if he still listens. John. Happy birthday, John.
Happy birthday, John.
Which makes it one day before my birthday, which we don't have to talk about
back to back
any further.
Last day of 40.
Yeah.
No. First day of 40.
Recording
Somehow
on a Monday
forever.
night. This is a podcast that records on Monday nights, though you wouldn't have guessed that based on the last 6 weeks or so.
It's complicated with football and holidays.
Abe, I got a bone to pick with you and your pals over at the Biffler.
I don't have a bone to pick with them.
I'm growing a little bit tired here of. I mean, to the listener, let's be honest. This podcast sounds like the equal efforts of 3 people, right? It sounds like I am here as 1/3 of the podcast. Abe is there as another third of the podcast, and Lori.
I don't think that it sounds like that.
But that's just what the brain naturally does.
I think the brain hears you go on and on and on loudly and knows that this is not an equal threesome.
That's gross. Also, everyone has at their disposal on their devices the button that goes up and down with the volume.
Right.
I'm only as loud as the listener wants me to be.
You are supposed to balance that.
And that's what I'm saying, is that because I balance how loud I am relative to myself and to everyone else in the podcast, even when I yell, it really doesn't sound that much louder to the listener unless they've suddenly and seemingly randomly turned their volume up quite loudly.
Unless they're listening live, like I am.
Yeah, but you're the only one who does that. Anyway, the point is that one could be forgiven for operating under the misapprehension that this is a podcast that is put together equally by 3 different people doing the inputs. And rest assured, it's not the case, all right? Believe it or not, Lori doesn't do anything for this podcast besides sit her ass over there.
I keep the minutes.
And fund the lavish lifestyle that allows me to...
Yeah, and I fund the whole thing. I keep the minutes by reminding you that there is a clock, and...
That's not what keeping the minutes means.
That's what it is now.
The point is, every time I get feedback on this godforsaken podcast that I've devoted so much of my life to these last 3 years, and also for 2 years back in... It's about how great Lori is, which is, it's good. I mean, I like being told that I have chosen wisely in my life partner and the mother of my children. But it's a little bit punishing over and over again to hear something like the following.
Greaseball and filet, Beniam. It is time for the most anticipated segment.
Wait. What is the bit? Is a fillet and there's what?
The bit
Filet is like a good thing, and greaseball is a bad
yes,
thing.
but what's the other thing?
A fillet and a greaseball. The whole conceit is lifted from a much more popular podcast, correct, Abe?
And I'm sure they also lifted it from
Yeah,
someone else.
to be fair, there is no such thing as an original idea.
Yeah,
but
pop quiz hot shot.
what you got, right. So listener and supporter Corey, wrote in to tell us that Daniel Tosh does a segment on his podcast, Pop Quiz Hot Shot.
Pop quiz, hot shot. What size shoe am I?
12.
What's my waist size?
34.
He does a Pop Quiz Hot Shot thing on the Daniel Tosh podcast. I don't know if it's a recurring bit or if it's just something that he came up with off the top of the dome. But like, what's next, Abe? Are we going to find out that like Kevin Nealon has a fucking podcast where he has some local newsman he wants to find out if the guy in his area got off a good one? I will be fucking furious if it turns out that Kevin Nealon does such a bit.
If that is actually true, if there's somebody out there that has like a Strassman-like segment, that we live in a simulation. Then like this is all just a ruse.
Anyway, the Biffler lifted its greaseball and filet from, is it the Breakfast Club?
The Breakfast
people?
Club, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Very
that was
popular.
Binyam's stealing, by the way, not my doing.
So they give out
Honorable man, obviously.
They give out a filet and then a greaseball every week, and this was Binyam, your co-host on the Biffler. This was his filet this past week. Which, by the way, 3-hour goddamn podcast. It took me, because I'm a busy man now with the morning press and all the other stuff I have going on in my life. It took me like 6 days over the course of like 5 different listening sessions somehow to power all the way through to the end of this episode. But quite the reward I was granted when I got into hour 3.
So I've been listening to some podcasts, and of course our podcast is my favorite and the best podcast. But if you want to listen to a lesser known, not as great podcast,
Cast Iron Brains.
Suggest Cast Iron Brains. I was listening to the podcast.
Oh, you listen to that shit?
I was listening to it.
You actually are. You're talking about Cast Iron actually?
I'm actually talking about the
Whoa,
Cast Iron
okay.
Brains
Wow,
with
okay.
our boy.
Where are you listening on that shit?
Pause. Hey, Mike. Oh, what the fuck, man? You're sitting there on a call with your boy Abe, who is on both podcasts, and you're just astonished that someone would listen to Abe on another podcast? Why are you listening to that shit? I don't know, man. Give it a spin. Find out.
Mike is notoriously known in the group. He not only doesn't listen to other podcasts, he won't listen to our own podcast when he's not on it, and also he will direct people that he knows, if he mentions them, to listen to specific parts of the podcast. Like, don't listen to this 3-hour monstrosity. 2 hours, 5 minutes in, I say something for like 2 minutes. Listen
Very
to that.
normal.
Yeah.
To be fair, as I've expressed before, Mike doesn't listen to the podcast when he's currently on it.
Also
and
true.
it's often quite obvious, which is part of the charm,
Yes.
to be clear. Sure. But we can't be going on about like what Mike judges worthy to be listening to, considering he's in the room with you guys and not listening half the time. Back to Binyam here.
So I gotta say that within that, I think that Lori is the star of the show, and so she's the Cast Iron Brain, and then you jackasses, you guys are just there
We're
talking
just
about
there,
some
yeah.
bullshit. And what the fuck? So first of all, your boy Bob is talking shit about me on this show. He doesn't realize that I'm fucking listening to his shit.
Oh, Bob, you
This
sneaky
bullshit
devil.
motherfucker. So I mean, I was gonna roast his ass, but I'm gonna leave it because he was talking shit about Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You know, but then he gave praise to Martin Luther King. You know what I mean? So it's weird
White
for
guilt,
me
man.
as a
White
black
guilt.
guy.
You know, trash the white person and praise the
So
black
it's
man.
weird for
It's
me
white
because
guilt.
I was gonna give praise to Taylor Swift and talk shit about Martin Luther King. He did the opposite, so we kind of just balanced out. But anyway,
He's the
it's-
yin
it's
to
a-
your
it's
yang,
a-
Biniam.
It's an interesting podcast. I gotta say, fuck you, Bob, you piece of shit.
You should enjoy
I'm gonna
He's
stop
just
it
not.
there.
Wait, this is Binyam. Is this person?
Binyam, yes.
Thank you, Binyam. If you're listening, thank you. I appreciate your appreciation for me.
That's it? That's all you got to say?
What else do I need to say?
All right. It's just, this is such a consistent,
Thank you.
a consistent return that it makes me we should give up. We should get Lori her own fucking show and market the shit out of that, because for some reason Lori is the entire apparent appeal of this whole thing.
Yeah, what I've been saying, it like sort of in response to that, but big picture is you should fucking listen to me and let me know what you're doing and get my input. So that's it.
There was another friend, they don't have their own podcast or they're not on another podcast, they also, when they listened to an episode of ours, they commented and complimented Lori alone. I think it's like a message. It's like, why is that guy talking? Like, oh, enough of him. They don't say that, but you know.
Well, I would encourage everyone to go listen to the Biffler, but I refuse to even say the name of the podcast correctly. So good luck finding it. But anyway, no, that was a great deal of fun to listen to the other night when I finally.
He said, "Uh-oh, they're talking about you," and I said, "Well, I am a bitch, and I do be." So,
warning to anyone who's considering listening to the latest episode of the Biffler, there's a lot of male grooming stuff in that third hour, so just steer it clear.
Podcast really, really went off the rails in a way that, I mean, it not to say that it hasn't before.
Yes.
But in whole new ways.
male grooming stuff.
Let's open up the WGAS NEWSBAG. It's time for Who Gives a Shit News. Haven't opened up the NEWSBAG officially in a while now. This might be the first official peek into the WGAS NEWSBAG of the new year. I wanted to talk about this headline: New York Times, mix-up preceded deadly drone strike in Jordan, U.S. officials say. And this is something that I covered on the Morning Press this morning. People will have no doubt heard the story already. But on Sunday, a drone, an unmanned aerial vehicle of some sort, went flying into something called Tower 22, which is a U.S. military outpost in Jordan near the border with Syria, and killed 3 American service people, all 3 young African-American men, I think, or maybe...
I thought there was a woman involved.
2 young men and a woman, perhaps. Particulars obviously matter a great deal to the individuals involved, but that's not why I bring it up. 3 people were killed. 3 dozen more were injured. This happened at night while they were... The base was quiet. All these people were asleep in the sleeping quarters, some sort of tent/barrack situation there in the desert. And it was apparently fired by an Iranian-backed militia from Iraq, and suspicions that the Pentagon immediately fell on Kataib Hezbollah, an Iran-affiliated group in Iraq. It has those footprints, is what the Pentagon spokeswoman said. And then some sort of umbrella organization, whose name escapes me at the moment, and I'm not seeing it here in this article, claimed responsibility for it. The reason that it was able to, because you would imagine this pretty common thing that drones are fired at American targets out there in the world. We have a lot of them as far as available targets. So you would think that we would have sufficient defenses to stop this sort of an attack. Apparently, the reason that this drone was able to slip past those defenses is because it came in at the same time that another U.S. drone was returning from some sort of sortie, its own reconnaissance mission. And just by sheer happenstance and bad luck, these 2 drones came in at roughly the same time, and therefore the defenses were down at the base, allowing this enemy drone to come in and explode and end up killing 3 people. The Biden administration response has been, Biden said I think it was in South Carolina on Sunday, he mentioned the dead soldiers and how our hearts are with them or what have you, but also said the United States is going to respond. We will do so in a time and place of our choosing. But rest assured, we're going to respond. Republicans in Congress immediately started calling for fucking all-out war with Iran.
Blow everything up kind of thing.
Lindsey Graham's and I think John Cornyn said something similar to that. And Mike Johnson had a fairly aggressive response, which that would be bad, I think. And John Kirby, the National Security Council spokesman, said that we know that Iran supports these groups, but we're not looking for all-out war with Iran or something like that. And Blinken said on Monday that he would not telegraph any potential U.S. response, but that such action could be multi-leveled, come in stages, and be sustained over time. This is happening at the same time that Iran-backed Houthis are bombing ships, including firing at U.S. merchant vessels, commercial vessels, and U.S. Navy vessels in the Red Sea as those vessels patrol the Gulf of Aden and parts beyond in the Red Sea. in an attempt to keep commercial shipping safe from Houthi attacks, where they claim that they are trying to show support for the Palestinians and prevent any additional supplies or weaponry from getting to Israel, which is a very sort of loose bullshit cover for the pain that they're causing to the global shipping industry. So we've got attacks happening there at sea. We've got this attack happening in Jordan. We had the two this wasn't anyone else's doing, but 2 U.S. Navy SEALs died in an attempt to board a ship off the coast of Somalia that was apparently full of Iranian missile parts that was on its way to the Houthis in Yemen. And 2 U.S. Navy SEALs in the rough seas that they were experiencing as they attempted to board the ship. One was tossed into the ocean, and the other, following protocol, dove in after him to try to save his life, and they were both lost at sea and have not yet been recovered. Not to get into the weird, hey, I played Rainbow Six when I was 16 years old and also read Tom Clancy novels at a time. And so the movie version of this, they didn't have cool oxygen, nitrogen, inflatable packs or something that they just pull the ripcord, and then the special propellers come out, and there's airbags and propellers and shit, and they can survive forever because they're fucking Navy SEALs. I guess not. I guess you fall into a rough ocean, you might just die.
There's no plot armor in real life.
Right. No, it's a dangerous thing, and they just die sometimes. So anyway, this attack by this Iranian-backed militia group on a U.S. base in Jordan is an escalation in a way that we haven't seen recently, where it's a direct attack on U.S. personnel. Right. At least successful. It's not like the Houthis haven't been directly attacking the people in the Red Sea, but this being a successful thing makes it something of an escalation. I bring this up in the context of Lloyd Austin coming back to work today, which Lloyd Austin has been out for the last month. He's the defense secretary. Shortly before Christmas, he went into the hospital. We haven't talked about this. Careful listeners of the Morning Press will have heard this story before. But Lloyd Austin mysteriously disappeared from work for a little while shortly before Christmas, and then apparently was back, and then again at the start of the year for a few days. I want to say around January 3rd, January 5th, something like that. He was once again incommunicado with the relevant people at the Pentagon and at the White House, and instead his top aide was put in charge of all of his responsibilities at a time that she was actually vacationing in Puerto Rico. So she gets a call on the beach well, don't worry, you've got all of the relevant laptops and the satellite phone and all of this shit and the secure link to the Pentagon, but just so you know, you're in charge the next couple days just in case anything goes haywire. But that was only communicated to her after Austin was no longer available. This wasn't something that he cleared with her ahead of time. This was just something that became the case after he was in the hospital. And he was in the hospital, as it turns out, having a treatment for colon cancer. He's a 70-something-year-old man, I believe, and experienced some complications from having had a colon cancer treatment and surgery before Christmas that landed him in the hospital for the better part of a week during the first part of the year. And I immediately assumed and sort of predicted that Lloyd Austin was going to be out of a job because of what had happened. This is at a time of much increased concern about national security and the fact that there are American military positions, we're in an active hot war in many ways out there in the Middle East, and not to mention everything going on in Ukraine. It seems to me obvious that someone who failed to disclose to people at the Pentagon and then also people at the White House that he was going to be out of touch for a few days, even if ultimately the worst thing didn't happen, that is something that is a breakdown in communication and a failure to properly communicate what's going on with you that would result in you not being able to do that job anymore. And that seemed super obvious to me. And I was surprised to see that he had simply returned to work this week, and also to have not really heard anything about it the last couple of weeks. Are you surprised that Lloyd Austin is still around?
I thought that there would be. I did not expect that he would lose his job over it. I figured there would be some hearing about what happened and how can you not. There's a breakdown in communication. Even the White House didn't know. Like you don't. One of the arguments that was raised on his behalf was that this is a private thing and he's a private person and private this, private that. But like, you don't have to like disclose exactly why you're stepping aside, but it's of paramount importance that you let somebody know that you need to be gone for a private matter, leave it at that, and let the number two person deal with it. Because like you mentioned, like it's not like nothing was going around in the world. I mean, there were a lot of things happening, and it just for optics alone, it gives the appearance that there's no communication between the Defense Department and the White House. Like they're not in constant contact. I mean, isn't there all these attempts to like resolve the hostage situation with Hamas? Like there are all these things happening.
This is the most mind-boggling thing about it to me, which is that it was like 2 or 3 days before the White House even knew that Lloyd Austin wasn't available.
Right.
Like at the beginning of the year, at a time of like heightened military action for the United States military in numerous places all over the globe, apparently Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary, we're not talking about Pete Buttigieg and who's in charge of the trains or whatever the fuck. This is the defense secretary.
Right.
This is a person who is second in charge, basically, of the entire United States military. He only answers to one person. He answers to the commander-in-chief, which is Joe Biden. How is it possible that the White House was completely unaware that Lloyd Austin was not available because he was in the fucking hospital? And what it suggests to me, and this is why I thought it was a done deal that Lloyd Austin was going to be gone, is that the White House cannot abide the perception that either Joe Biden or Lloyd Austin are so completely inconsequential to the goings-on with the U.S. military and the international and foreign affairs of this country that one cannot know that the other is completely unavailable to them, right? Like Joe Biden especially cannot abide the perception that he's not tapped into what's going on because he is a desperately old man, and like that indicates some of the extremity of his age that he would not be tapped in to what is going on. So either Biden is not tapped in, or Austin is so extraneous to the mission that it doesn't matter that he disappears for 3 days completely out of touch, and the White House doesn't fucking care. So either the White House is communicating the deep state is real and none of the figureheads matter because the administrative state does everything behind the scenes, right? Like ultimately it's the number twos and the number threes and the number fives who are all communicating with one another, and the idiots who go in front of the camera and give a speech once every couple of weeks aren't involved in the day-to-day. That's the impression that the Joe Biden administration wants to have in an election year? I wouldn't think so, and that's why I was so sure that Austin was going to be gone. But apparently, because of the churn of the news cycle, I guess it doesn't fucking matter after a week.
Okay, that is a consideration, but also I think the main reason why he's not leaving is because of the timing. I mean, we're into 2024. Either it's a one-term presidency and this person just serves out his term, or if he wins re-election by then, they generally will get a new person in. Usually there's a high turnover after the first term where they get in a new Secretary of State, a new Secretary of Defense. And so maybe there just wasn't the appetite to go through a confirmation process this soon.
I think that, well, sure, a confirmation process, but you accept that the deputy takes over in the meantime.
Yeah, there'll be like an acting role kind of thing, yeah. The one thing that I am surprised, though, is that there wasn't, I guess they didn't make as big of a deal out of it by the Republicans. You would think they would pounce on this and they would like insist that he resign and, you know, it looks bad or whatever. Like, but there was like maybe like for like a couple of days when this happened, but that kind of died down. I haven't heard anybody really bringing that up again. And it seems like, you know, to the point as far as like how useless is Lloyd, you know, the Secretary of Defense, is that the Secretary of State and this, for some reason, the CIA person, they're being utilized a lot. They're always being flown to the Middle East or to Korea or wherever there's trouble to sort things out. I think most recently there was a story that I read where the CIA guy, Burns, was going to go and finalize a 2-month ceasefire deal with Hamas,
Right.
to where like the hostages are released, and I do wonder if the drone strike was related to that, to scuttle that, because that seems to be the MO. Like anytime there's an agreement, a big agreement within reach, there's always some sort of October 7th was like because Saudi Arabia and Israel were on the verge of coming to some agreement, and then now when you have like a 2-month ceasefire, that would undercut the argument of the Houthis, right? Like, so if they did go through with a ceasefire for a couple of months, then at least for the next couple of months, their argument that they're attacking these ships until the ceasefire arrives is going to be undone. So I don't know if there's any coordination related to that, but to the point, it seems like there are certain departments where the head is important. Like Blinken seems to be involved in everything.
Blinken is in the news every day. Jack Kirby is in the news every single day. Jake
Kirby,
Sullivan is in the news every single day.
Right.
Lloyd Austin can disappear for a week at a time, and Joe Biden doesn't fucking know about it. That's the I can't get past it. If your Secretary of Defense, the number 2 in the entire military, is out of touch for 3 days, and the president doesn't know, and it doesn't fucking matter, then you need a different Secretary of Defense, right? Imagine Dick Cheney disappearing for 3 days on Ronald Reagan, or on George H.W. Bush, rather. Imagine Donald Rumsfeld being just gone for a week and nobody finding it. It's completely inconceivable, right?
But there are certain, I don't know why, some Defense Department heads don't do much. I mean, there was like a couple of them during the Trump years where they were just kind of there. There was like some geeky-looking guy with glasses that was just there. Like, I don't know what he did.
Yeah,
like,
and in my opinion, it is too important a job to allow that to be made so plain as to then just be like to shrug when the guy isn't there for a week. And that maybe that's a personal issue of mine, but the world is a super dangerous place for the United States military right now, and there's a great deal of shit going on, and it's weird to me that Biden and his campaign in particular would be comfortable with this being the status quo, and I'm surprised that he's not been forced out. That's all.
Right. The only thing I can think of is like there are so many other things, like it's not going to come to this, right? So like let's not pick a fight over this, and let's just
but he hasn't had hardly any high level cabinet turnover, basically none.
Yeah, that is it's been pretty consistent.
It would be to me, it would demonstrate a little bit of leadership to be like, look, Lloyd, we love you. You've had a tremendous career, but this was a serious lapse in judgment that we just can't abide because the world is too dangerous a place right now for our men and women who are on the front lines, and we welcome your resignation because what a great job you've done, but we're gonna go a different direction from here on out. Like that to me would show leadership by Biden in a way that would solve the problem.
Any upside would be very negligible, but the downside would be anything that comes, like even like this. If let's say they had done that a few weeks ago when this happened, like he tendered his resignation and he just fucked off, and then there was this a kamikaze drone or whatever, like the strike. They would say, because of the turmoil at the Pentagon or turmoil at the leadership or whatever, it happened because of this, right? So basically, it would give some sort of story to attach that to, and that story would just continue. Like the way it happened, luckily, they just kind of like avoided scrutiny. I don't know. Like I guess so many things are happening. People just kind of just said, fuck it. We'll worry about something else.
Is there anything to my suggestion that this sort of reveals the deep state at work, that functionally, and I say that without, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here, I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but to me, it matters that the civil servants that we put in charge in the executive branch, the reason that those are figureheads or not just figureheads. The reason that they exist in the first place is because it's the only way that we can hold these massive executive administrations and bureaucracies accountable, right? We don't know the people who are numbers 3 through 7 at the Defense Department. We know Lloyd Austin is there because the person that we elected president, Joe Biden, selected him, and then he was confirmed. He got a waiver to be able to get the job because he's a former general, and this is supposed to go to someone who's a civilian. So he gets a waiver in order to do. I think he needed a waiver. I know that.
I think because the time did not expire, right? Wasn't there like you have to have been removed from?
It's like
whatever
7 years or something like that.
Yeah, and they weren't quite there, but it was close.
Right.
Enough.
So no big deal. But the point is that this person needed the advice. You needed the consent of the Senate in order to get in there.
Yeah.
And that is the mechanism that we have in place for holding these agencies to account. And if we just and that's what bothers me so much about reelecting Joe Biden right now is because, as you've said before, this dude is going to be super old in January of 2029, right? Like think about that. He's got to make it not to November and then January of this year and next. That's 4 more years after that Joe Biden's going to be around.
No less. Not like the years we will experience the next 4 years, right? Just normal people. But like these are 4 presidential years, which you can double.
Right. So we're not to imagine that we're electing a president who has like, even assuming that he's done a halfway decent job of being fully engaged over the course of the last 2.5 years, the idea that somehow this person is going to be a fully engaged daily executive in a way that basically any other president has been in our lifetimes is ridiculous, right? We're not actually electing Joe Biden to be the president in the way that we have imagined the president to be over the course of our lifetimes. We're doing something else. And what that is we're electing the upper echelons of the Democratic administrative state to run the executive of the White House, essentially ceding control to the White House chief of staff and whoever else Biden puts in charge there. You know, not just symbolically, but like literally, that's the thing that we're going to be doing. And that's not what we agreed to when we put Joe Biden in the White House the first time. And so it's weird to me that we would just go ahead and you want to call it the deep state, fine. But to me, not holding the people that are that we put in charge, not holding them to account, it robs the people of power in a way that we didn't agree to.
Right, and it's likely just, I think this lays bare what actually happened, but like it's likely that this is happening even when you have a healthy Defense Department person, right? Like if he was there this whole time, but he kind of delegates a lot of the actual work, it would be the same thing, right? But to the point you're making about like a Biden presidency, I mean, like in 2020, just like now, it's not about Biden. It's about like whether or not people are okay with Trump being president, right? The decisions that people will make will be centered around Trump, not around Biden.
Right, and by the way, the same exact criticism applies to the Trump administration. That guy's not the fucking president in the way that previous presidents were. He's the TV president. He's the Twitter president. Instead, we cede control to the underlings, the people that he puts in charge over there, and the people at the upper echelons of the RNC. It's not a presidency, and that's part of what pushes me away from Trump. And in the same way that it's what drives a lot of normie Republicans to Trump. They're like, okay, he can do whatever the fuck he wants over here. We know that the deep state is actually running the show behind the scenes. I don't know why we've suddenly become so comfortable with that.
Although maybe, you know, if those are the people that like, I would rather that they don't run things, you know, because maybe they'll just do further damage. I do wonder, though, like, who do you think is like the most involved of the presidents? Like, was it Clinton? Like, I mean, like, at least in the modern era, like, it seems like, I don't think Reagan was doing a lot of like interacting. That's like, just figure it out. You know?
Except that at least in terms of, so I think that we've, I don't think I've fully expressed this before, but
gotta be W.
Yeah, W was pretty involved.
We've had a shift since Trump took over, and I think arguably it starts with the failure of Barack Obama to meaningfully lead, and not to say that it's all on him, because it is in fact, in part at least, in no small part, on congressional Republicans and their unwillingness or inability to convince their voters that working with Obama made sense. And arguably you can go back to, and we'll get into James Lankford and the immigration deal here in a minute, the border security deal in a second. But go back to Gang of Eight. Go back to Marco Rubio trying to get something done on immigration reform under George W. Bush, and the party bowing to its masters in right-wing media and the populist uprising that was coming out of any attempt to meaningfully address the immigration problem way back when, in whatever it was, 2006, 2007, something like that.
Oh, going back. Wasn't there another effort in 2013-ish?
That's right, and that's the Rubio one that I was thinking of.
That's what I was saying on Sunday. Didn't Obama do something? And you said what? And I was like, I don't know. Something.
Yeah, there was basically a deal in hand, and it was scuttled because of this concerted effort on the right-wing talk shows.
The point is that for wherever you want to lay the blame, I think that the Democrats are sort of less interested in having someone like a Bill Clinton who is going to be the leader in the way that leaders lead, right? And it's a very even if you want to get down to the sort of very simplistic way of thinking about it, right-wingers are more likely to say, put a strong leader out in front and have him fucking lead in the mold of Ronald Reagan, at least in terms of the rhetoric, right? In the mold of Donald Trump in terms of the rhetoric, in the mold of fucking Hitler in terms of the rhetoric, whereas left-wingers, at least aesthetically, kind of prefer a more communal, it takes a village sort of approach than getting one person out in front and really cheerleading the way through it. And part of that, I suspect, is related to Barack Obama's failure, where the thing that they thought they were electing when they elected Barack Obama, which was this person who was going to lead them to some imagined beautiful post-racial progressive future, turned out to have nothing but sand in the gears for the large part of his administration. So maybe they lost the faith in that sort of way. And Joe Biden is a reaction to that. Joe Biden is just the middle-of-the-road guy who's perfectly willing to be pushed by his party wherever the whims of the party currently are blowing, right? That is who Joe Biden has been his entire career. And it's weird to me that the same exact thing is going on with the Republicans on the other side, but with this facade, the Trumpian facade of authoritarian leadership thrown on top of it.
It can't be stressed enough how much the incentives have changed. There was a time where if you were to do a compromise deal, that would be seen as a positive thing, and now that's not the case. So it doesn't matter what a president's willingness is. If it's against the interest of the other party, they will see to it that they won't give you any wins, right? Just like, we have now with Biden, like you kind of had with Trump, especially what you had with Obama during the Tea Party movement and all that stuff. They're just basically don't give him any wins, right? And so it's kind of hard to navigate that environment and compare it to a different time where it was a positive thing to do some sort of compromise.
On that note, this is James Lankford, Oklahoma senator, appearing on Fox News Sunday this weekend. James Lankford, I'm sure I've said bad things about him in the past because he's always annoyed me. But leave it to somebody just trying to get something done, just working to try to accomplish a rational goal, for my sympathies to suddenly align with that individual. The moment he goes from being the rhetorical nut job who's unwilling to say anything bad about Donald Trump to can't we just do a thing? Here's a thing and we can do it. And everybody's no, we're definitely not going to do that.
Okay. President Biden spoke about this last night on a campaign rally, and he said essentially if the bill were law today, it would shut down the border right now and fix this whole thing. So a lot of Republicans are saying he has things he could use now, executive powers and laws that are not being enforced. So why give him this in an election year, the cover of this deal that, critics say is still going to let a lot of people in, but he gets to take a victory lap that he's gotten something done?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not going to let a bunch of people in. It's focused on actually turning people around on it. It is interesting. Republicans 4 months ago would not give funding for Ukraine, for Israel, and for our southern border because we demanded changes in policy. So we actually locked arms together and said, we're not going to give you money for this. We want a change in law. And now it's interesting, a few months later, when we're finally getting to the end, they're like, oh, just kidding. I actually don't want a change in law because it's a presidential election year. We all have an oath to the Constitution, and we have a commitment to say we're going to do whatever we can to be able to secure the border. Just as a quick, for instance, the last 4 months, we've had 50.
I'll stop it there. That's not a Democrat saying that quote. right? That's James Lankford, Republican from Oklahoma.
General Hux
saying,
from New Star Wars.
He doesn't not look like that guy. You're right about that. 4 months ago, me and all of my Republican colleagues were like, we're not going to do this Israel and Ukraine aid unless we come up with some border legislation. And then they come up with some border legislation that Republicans are for in the Senate. And the Republicans are now moving the can further down the road, saying, no, just kidding. They're loosey with the football, pulling the deal away at the last moment just to benefit Donald Trump and to harm Democratic interests in an election year. That's the Republican James Lankford saying that. I don't know how you can argue with it either.
And I mean, it would be an effective thing, right? Basically, deny them the win. Like, I mean, a totally cynical ploy, and it's no surprise that Trump is behind this. But most people are not going to pay attention to exactly how it transpired, right? So most people are going to say, I keep on seeing it on the news, all this southern border stuff, and nothing's happening, and the guy in office is not doing anything. And that the decisions will be made on that. It's kind of like the deny Obama the Merrick Garland thing. There was no cost to pay. Like it worked.
It was reminding
like
me of that too.
Hold off, and then if the election goes our way, then we'll get our own person, right? And so it's like with this, like don't do anything until
this is what drives
win.
me crazy about it, which is that first of all, there is a real world where the failure to do something here actually has negative real world consequences, right? So but beyond that, the fact is giving Biden the win, quote unquote, is utterly meaningless to anyone who would be concerned about such things because the swayable voter in this instance doesn't exist. Ted Cruz and Mike Johnson are going to continue, and Greg Abbott are going to continue to bang the same drum no matter what. And it doesn't matter how believable it is because they're only talking to 25 to 40% of the population. In the same way that whether or not Joe Biden gets the win here, he's just going to bang the same drum no matter what, and it won't be persuasive to anyone because he's only talking to 25 to 40% of the population. So we need the James Lankfords of the world in the Senate to actually get something done that has a meaningful impact on the reality of the world on the ground, or else it really matters that we have these. I'm doing a poor job of explaining what my problem is here, I think, but it's okay.
No, you're not.
It's okay to have a situation where we all just play politics and talk to our respective bases, and never the two shall meet in the middle, right? Like that. If we're going to be divided in this way, in our ideological bubbles in the way that we are, that's fine as long as Paul Ryan is in there in the inner workings, actually working to get stuff done, right? Actually keeping the lights on in the government, and it's fine to play the stupid rhetorical bullshit bomb throwing shit on Fox News and on at the White House press briefing room. By all means, have at it. It doesn't matter. But you have to then also somehow find a way to actually get the work of government done in the meantime. Because it doesn't matter. They're all going to be saying the same thing, no matter what, whether the thing gets passed or not. And it doesn't. And I know you're going to say, forgive me for putting words in your mouth. You're going to say yes, but then Biden can say X, Y, and Z, and then Trump can say X, Y, and Z. It doesn't fucking matter. Nobody. This is Donald Trump. The bet is made. The concrete was poured in 2015, and if it wasn't set by 2016, it was set and cured by 2020. And then it was fucking double, triple cured on January 6th of 2021, right? Like the floor and the ceiling are fully established here. We are at complete loggerheads in every rhetorical fashion. It doesn't fucking matter. We need to be able to get stuff like this done under the table.
Okay, so in the real world, you would be correct, right? But in the political world, they're trying to win, right? The whole objective is to win, right? And you said, okay,
that's like trying to control. That's like trying to control the climate by having a weather forecast. It's like trying to control for a weather forecast 6 months from now. It's absurd it's absurd for them to imagine that they're going to have any impact on any of it.
Okay, let me just finish the point, Bob. I know it's only a few seconds, but let me finish the point. So at the end of the day, you need to have these campaign ads, right? And thinking on the Democratic side, there would be a lot of abortion stuff, right? They took away your abortion. What else are they going to take, right? This loss aversion. They're gonna tap into that heavily on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, hey, vote for me and I'll do this, right? The tax cut has already been passed, so they're not going to talk about that. Like, what is the most salient issue they can point to? And it'll be the southern border. This old man Biden has fucking let the whole southern border just completely open, and you put me in office and I'll sort it out, right? That'll be the argument that'll be in all of the ads going into the fall, right? Throughout the whole thing. So why give that up now? Like a year?
Because they're not giving anything up. They could do this, and they could still run all of the border Biden the Biden border ads that they wanted.
But explain that to me. In order for this to pass, to get to the president's desk, like the Speaker of the House, the Republicans will have to sign off on it, right? They bring it to the floor and get it to vote. The Senate get it all sorted out, get the language right. Send it to the president. There's going to be a bipartisan. Langford's going to be there. All these people. That's their campaign ad, right? So all of the money that the Democrats have,
completely.
right? So let's say that. Let's dismiss that. That doesn't mean anything. Okay, so now you're on the Republican side. What is it? What is your pitch? Like, we're going to do it even harder next year? We're going to do another border deal?
In 2019, Donald Trump had control of the border, and in 2024, Joe Biden doesn't, and that's reflected in all of these scary brown faces that we're going to show you in this commercial. Is it true? Is it in good faith? Right. Nope. And it doesn't fucking matter, because that's the politics we're in now. I will point to something. I will point to something from this week, which is that the economy and Joe Biden's approval rating apparently have been inextricably tied for the last 3 years. Right. Okay. That's what we're meant to understand about. Part of the reason why this is in thousands of news stories that you've heard or read since the beginning of 2021 that inflation and the Biden economy have been bad, and that's why Joe Biden has never, since summer of 2021, has never had an above water approval rating. He's currently hovering at literally below Donald Trump levels at this point in the presidency, right? Like, it took a global pandemic to knock Donald Trump down to as bad an approval rating as Joe Biden has. And we're now seeing not only is the economy humming along better than expected in terms of GDP growth and in terms of reduction in inflation after a rather punishing last couple of years, we're now seeing public opinion on the economy finally start to turn around as well. And we're seeing zero movement whatsoever on Joe Biden's approval. It means utterly nothing about the economy, because those two things exist in different parts of people's brains. In the same way that an immigration reform thing gets tied in with Ukraine and Israel aid does not stop Bob Good, my piece of shit congressman, from running the exact same ads that he was going to run anyway about runaway insecurity at the border and runaway spending in Washington and how we need to throw the bums out, right? That it won't materially change anything about the plan. It will, however, failure to get anything done have a materially negative impact on Ukraine's ability to withstand Russian aggression and on Israel's ability to maintain itself in the Middle East and on our ability to have a safe border. So what's the fucking problem here?
What is the political advantage for Republicans who only care about winning to pass this deal?
They don't only care about winning. They would rather be in the minority right now. That's something else that I think is fairly obvious. There is no advantage whatsoever to Mike Johnson being the Speaker of the House beyond being able to throw sand in the gears, because he can't actually get anything done. They don't want to govern. They want to be a pain in the ass to the governing coalition, right? That's the point of the modern Trump conservative movement at this point. And that's why it's perfectly fine for them to allow the rhinos in Washington to shove this thing through and then campaign against it.
But that's not what's happening. I mean, why is there all this this pushback where basically now the speaker is saying that this is dead on arrival, and like all of the momentum is kind of shifted because like initially I would hear, let's wait until we see what's in the bill, blah, 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 blah. But even before they got to the details of the bill, they were like, oh, no, our nominee doesn't want it, so fuck it. Like, so now it seems like they don't want it. And so to me, like, that to me sounds like a move for political purpose, so they can win this fall on this issue. The state of Texas.
I'm saying I 100% agree with you that this is simply an attempt to play politics with the border, which should offend the shit out of the people who are most concerned about border security, right? Like, obviously, that should offend those people the most. But the reality is that it's just a stupid rhetorical game after all, right? The whole thing is a fucking fake to begin with. So what are we doing here? Like, just pass the fucking bill, and then you can play your stupid rhetorical games.
What do you make of Biden? Like just kind of like just wrapping his arms around the deal enthusiastically. Would it have been better for him to play like, oh my God, we're conceding so much, kind of like give him like the optics win, like to say, this is fucking draconian, but whatever. How does a president say this is draconian and then sign it? It seems unlikely. Use other words, but cause like for him to like embrace it the way he did, like it would be seen as a Biden win. I really do think it comes down to that simple way of framing things. I mean, like the state of Texas and all the other states that joined them in that bizarre thing last week.
I think the problem is that I no longer see the Republicans and Trump especially, and then everything that flows from Trump, as cohering to anything rational from the five words that they said before, right? So why do we continue to pretend like they're going to operate in a coherent fashion?
I think you're the only one pretending that.
No, that's what I'm saying. Abe is presenting this argument as though it would just be completely fucking ridiculous for Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Mike Johnson to go on to say, after they passed this bill, after they sent it to the Rose Garden for the big elaborate signing ceremony, for them to condemn Joe Biden and his handling of the border.
That would be incoherent. I mean,
of course it would be incoherent, Abe. Where have you been for the last 10 years? It's all incoherent.
Look, if they didn't have a say, like if there wasn't a way for them to frustrate the efforts and prevent this from happening, and it happened, they would still make the case like you're saying. But why would they contribute to something that doesn't give them any advantage politically? It's a much stronger case to make if there's no deal. And say that the president
you only need 10 Republicans. All you need is for Mike Johnson to bring it to the House floor.
Right, but
that's all you need to do, because there will be 100 Republicans who say, "Okay, right, I'm for it."
But that's the problem, though, right? I mean, Mike Johnson's not going to bring it to the floor if it's not coordinated in such a way, right? So he's not going to bring it to the floor if the word is don't do this. Right, and so to me, I just don't know what the
Donald Trump isn't anyone. He's just a citizen. He doesn't have any control over the workings of the House of Representatives.
He is demonstrating the control, right? I mean, if it weren't for him, wouldn't this just pass? I don't think Johnson has any he just don't want to get into trouble with Trump's base. But if Trump was neutral on this, or if somehow he was actually for it, this would pass. The power rests with him. I mean, what do you mean? He's the one directing all this activity. And it worked once. And why not do it again?
It's a goddamn shame that he has that sort of power, because he doesn't actually have any of that power. They're just giving it to him. They just, here, have the power. He has no rightful claim to it. Last thing in the WGAS news bag here is a headline from Reuters. Pope says Africans are special case when it comes to LGBT blessings. This amused me the soft bigotry of low expectations sort of way.
That's not what I think it is. He's setting a lower standard.
A few weeks ago, Pope Francis gave some sort of, I forget it wasn't an encyclical, but it was some sort of guidance that said, hey, you priests out there, if you want to do blessings of gay marriages, just like every other rotten thing that we bless in this fallen world, go ahead. It makes people feel good. It's not a sacrament. It's just one more thing that people do. And if it brings them closer to God and to each other, then whatever. No big deal, according to Rome any longer.
That's nice.
Yeah, sure. It's a nice gesture at the very least. And then this from Reuters today. Pope Francis said in an interview published on Monday that Africans were a, quote, special case in the opposition of bishops and many other people in the continent to homosexuality. But he said he was confident that, except for Africans, critics of his decision to allow blessings for same-sex couples would eventually understand it. Blessings were allowed last month in a document called Fiducia Supplicans, or Supplicating Trust, which has caused widespread debate in the Catholic Church, with particularly strong resistance coming from African bishops. Quote, those who protest vehemently belong to small ideological groups, end quote, Francis told Italian newspaper La Stampa. Quote, a special case are Africans. For them, homosexuality is something bad from a cultural point of view. They don't tolerate it. But in general, I trust...
Is that true, Abe?
But in general, I trust that gradually everyone will be reassured by the spirit of the Fiducia Supplicans declaration by the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. It aims to include, not divide, the Pope said. All right. Abe, is this problematic from Pope Francis in screamingly obvious ways, or is it defensible?
So, like, Africa is uniquely, like, homophobic among the Catholics? Like, you would think that similar complaints would be made in other parts of the world, too, right? I mean, people are pretty homophobic.
I think
the other parts of the world are Muslim. So they're homophobic in a Muslim way, where Africa...
I think we can say Catholics, if we're going to go by group identity here, we can say Catholics are more homophobic than the general human population, right? And within that, Catholic bishops are more homophobic than the general Catholic population.
Right.
And within that, a further subset, the Pope is simply saying that African bishops are even more homophobic than the general bishop population of Catholic bishops.
What fire is he putting out by having this carve-out for African Catholics, right? It seems kind of a weird thing. It's almost kind of like...
He's not carving. He's just saying, like, yeah, people have problems with it. Lots of those are African bishops.
Right, but he could say, like, whatever. There are certain bishops who are going to be slower to change. And you kind of leave it vague, but just like, oh, those Africans, special case.
Well, he's old.
Yeah. Not great. Not great. Cool Pope, too.
Maybe it was lost in translation,
No, he's just old. What are they going to do to him?
Is there like are they getting like 6 extra years to sort it out? Or is there some sort of...
No, he's just said, it's just how it is, and we're going to move on. It's just what it is. What are you going to do?
I'd be great to have that sort of exception. Like, oh, everybody's going to try with this environmental stuff, except this continent. They are really against it. Just let them do whatever. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Hey, they'll come around.
Let's close up the WGAS news bag there. Let's instead get into cast iron balls. It's time for sports.
Ooh, sports.
Which I think... We should really break out the cast iron balls into its own podcast. Abe, how many nights a week do you want to podcast? Let's just fucking like 5, 6. Let's just do it.
It's very easy nowadays. You can boot up the computer.
There won't. We have this one and one more, and then we're done with sports.
Right, that's what I mean, though, because that's why you need another podcast, because we can't talk about like basketball here on CIB. No. That would be terrible. Corey is already threatening to be done with us if we talk about, because we talk about college football for like 6 fucking straight months, and Corey is ready to tear his ear balls out or whatever.
But Corey should fucking watch college football more.
This is a dominant run for Georgia. The window of greatness that Georgia has, it's kind of hard not to talk about.
See, even when they're not even playing.
The Chiefs are going to play the 49ers in Super Bowl 58. That's in 2 weeks, roughly, from yesterday. That will happen in Las Vegas. The line opened, I saw an early line at 2.5. That's already dropped to 1.5 as a favorite for
49ers, right? Yeah.
the 49ers.
This is the matchup that started 2020, right?
Yes, this was the same exact matchup from the end of the 2019 season. We're getting it one more time. This is the one where the 49ers had jumped out to a comfortable lead. And
Hopefully
then,
there won't be a global pandemic right after.
Yeah, Mahomes threw 2 picks in the second half to start, I think, like in the third and fourth quarter. And then they scored 2 touchdowns to take the lead and maintained it. What did you think of the football this weekend? First on the Chiefs and Ravens game, I don't know how much there is necessarily to say, except this game started in the first half with plenty of scoring, and the total was a nice low, like 43, I think was the line. And so before the game, I took not a large amount of money, but not an entirely insubstantial amount of money, and I said, "Give me the Chiefs and give me the over." And
You're stupid.
at halftime, I was like, we are all set here. The Chiefs are going to win, and this is going over for sure. And then it didn't. No more points. There's like one more field goal was scored between halftime and the end of the game. 17-10 was the final after a 17-7 halftime score. It turned into a defensive struggle, and the Ravens never got it going. They looked like dog shit. Lamar Jackson had a wonderful season, and he just didn't have it. They could not get it going. He threw a terrible pick in the second half.
Triple coverage, right?
You look at it, and there are 3 white jerseys and 1 purple jersey, and he threw it short into that coverage arrangement.
Yes.
Like, if it hadn't been picked, it would have been a crime. Terrible pick. Really tough for Lamar, who I was sort of rooting for, despite actually being rooting for the Chiefs. It would have been to my preference that Lamar had a great day. He did not have a great day. He was, in fact, thoroughly mediocre, whereas Mahomes looked pretty good.
He did have that great throw and catch, so that was not nothing.
He did have that once in a million
that was cool.
strange luck occurrence that happened, yes.
A quick, I'm going to make some criticisms of Lamar in just a second, but, there are low characters out in the world, people that I don't think highly of, right? And in traffic, the person, when you have multiple lanes and they try to wave you in, like if you're in opposite traffic, as if they have control of that extra lane, like you're not in a position to command traffic, right? And when that play happened, that terrible into triple coverage pick, I mean, that is on Lamar, right? So I understand that was on him.
I know exactly where you're going.
But
with
that
this,
fucking piece of shit receiver who's flagging his quarterback as if he's like wide open. Like maybe Lamar just saw the hand go up and he's like, I trust my guys intimately. If he thinks he's open, I'm just gonna throw it. You only have like half a second to decide, right? So if Lamar was thrown off by that hand raising, which was totally uncalled for, this guy was not open.
So that ball's got to go to the end, the back line of the end zone, right?
Right.
And because he was past at least 2. He might not have been fully past all 3 of the guys that were in coverage on him, but he was beyond at least 2 of them. Conceivably, if that ball goes to the back line of the end zone, he might be the only one who has a play on it. Instead, it goes to like the first 2 yards of the end zone, in which case 3 different Chiefs have a play on it. It was very amusing to me to see the hand go up,
like Randy Moss.
me. Yeah.
Like, you asshole. I mean, it was a terrible decision, and it was even a worse execution of the terrible decision. But on to Lamar. I mentioned to you, Bob, that Lamar reminds me so much of another quarterback, and that's Peyton Manning. He's very much like Peyton Manning.
They don't remind me of each other in any way.
So they're replicas of each other, the two. I mean, don't look them up side by side, but other than just...
I won't.
Regular season...
I won't look up the stats side by side either.
He's in the process of winning his second MVP, Lamar, right? Regular season, I mean, they could have given him to, like, McCaffrey or, other players, right? But he's going to get it, and it'll be his second MVP. He does great in the regular season, and he is completely lost in the playoffs. Like, this, like, the third or
Not
fourth
last
time.
week though. The second
Even the
half
first
of last
half
week's
of
game,
last
he was
week,
right. But the second half of last week's
Okay.
game, he was on another level.
So Lamar Jackson had 821 rushing yards last season.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning had 667 in his
In
career.
his career, yes. Not the production, but just their choking, collapsing. Like anytime I see Lamar and he has that, he just looks uneasy in the pocket. It reminds me of Happy Feet, Peyton Manning going up against the Patriots back in the day. Like they are both, they have problems with playing in the playoffs. I mean, Peyton Manning only won because of his defense. So like Baltimore will need to do something on that front to win. But like he is textbook Peyton Manning, and that was an awful game by him. Like, and it sucks because he seems like he's trying to turn the argument over to where like, hey, he does great both in the regular season and the playoffs. But like once again, they lose.
That argument, it needs more evidence. You can't just say it.
Look at the playoffs.
You can say it. You just doesn't mean it's true.
Give it over the coming years. We'll see what happens. It'll be just more of this.
Whereas Mahomes was near flawless. He made maybe a couple of questionable decisions, but ultimately didn't pay any steep price for them.
Really great catches.
And yeah, holy shit, Mahomes to Kelsey in particular was on in a way that they haven't been all year. Kelsey's had
He caught everything. It seemed like.
Yeah, everything worked. He threw, I think he was 10 for 10 with 112 yards or something in the first half, and then only added one more catch to Kelsey the rest of the way. I guess they decided they were going to sort of draw things back and just rely on the defense and not open things up unless they absolutely had to, which would have been information that I could have used maybe before I placed my bets.
That's not how that works.
You know, despite the poor performance by Lamar, the team was in it. Zay Flowers, once again, this stupid fucking turnover into the end zone thing. It's just never going to end.
So
I don't know why
stupid.
you need to extend your hand. Like, what is the idea?
He
Just
was trying to get a touchdown.
I know, but just like get the first and goal on the one. You have like a great
They're
rushing attack.
excited.
They're going to score the touchdown. But like,
But
that
you
would've-
don't get mad at it when they make it. Like so many times.
That was such a
that
tremendous
works.
play by the Chiefs guy who just
Yeah,
does
that was
the
crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
the
it was
punch.
like because it's all happening very fast, and like when they showed in slow motion, it kind of like undercuts like this. He punched the ball like in real
Very
speed.
quickly.
Like it was
Right, no,
remarkable.
I watched
how-
it and I thought, how can that be? How can it be that he punched it at the exact last moment for it to have come loose in the 2 inches before the ball was going to cross? Because I was watching it live, I was like, oh, surely that ball came out afterwards. There's no way. But then you watch it in high def at super slow-mo, and it's like, yeah, it came out just before he crossed the end zone.
And it's clear too, right? It was like a clear. You can tell it did not reach the line with him possessing it. But like I said, even despite how poorly the Ravens were playing, like they were in it because the game was just kind of just like there was no offensive output in the second half. So like they could have crawled back into it ugly and made a game of it, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah. And then the other game, Lions at the 49ers.
Did they?
At least it
did
wasn't
they-
in Detroit. It's all you can say about it. At least it wasn't at home. That's it.
Did they? I didn't catch any shot of him, but did they show that old geezer, that Lions
No,
fan?
he died.
I didn't.
No, he's dead
I
now.
didn't see him either.
Because I didn't see. I would like to have seen some cut to him, but like, if there is a sports god, an awfully cruel sports god. I mean, it'd be one thing if the Lions just lost. I mean, you lost to the number one. There's no shame in it. You know, you came close. It was a close game and you lost. But like to have them up, what was it, 24-7 or something, or 24-10?
Yeah, 24-7. 24-7 at the half.
Yeah, 24-7 at the half. Like
Not
holy shit,
just
you're-
any 24-7 either. Like a thoroughly dominant 24-7.
Yes, exactly. Totally dominant. And then, like, the worst third quarter sequence of events I've seen to a team like the Lions, who haven't won in, like, forever, to have that overthrown ball by Purdy hit the defensive player, bounce back to the offensive player.
They auburned it. They fully fucking auburned it on that play.
It was awfully reminiscent of many Georgia games we've seen, and my heart goes out to Lions fans. But like, you got to keep going.
it was like when that happened, I was like, uh-oh. And then like the next possession fumble, like, oh, this is over. I mean, like this is like if you're a shitty, like poverty-stricken franchise, this is how things fall apart. Like, oh, we're gonna be in the Super Bowl. And oh my God, we are. I mean, and it's just a total collapse. And like people are complaining about going for it on fourth down. I mean, they've been doing that all year, and it seems like I've never heard of that kicker. Like for a conference championship game, they just trotted out some random kicker I've never seen before. Yeah. And I guess they did not have a lot of confidence in him. But like if you're a team that goes for it and you go for it, that's one thing.
That was fine. I thought Dan Campbell coached fine. That was mostly. I didn't really question any of his decisions. In fact, the only one that I remember questioning was when he kicked the field goal in the first half, when I thought that he should have gone for it instead. I can't remember the exact details, but the only time that I was mad at him was when he didn't do the thing that he's known to do, which was he chose to kick the field goal instead of going for it. I also had the Lions, and I had the over in this one. And
what was the line for?
The line was like 53 or something, 52 and a half or 53. So the over was well in hand based on the first half. And then certainly the over hit. But then for the Lions, like I was feeling good at halftime. They were throwing money at me on FanDuel to be like, here, take this instead of the eventual payout that you're definitely going to get. And instead that one blew up in my face too. God damn it.
All right. Next thing. It's 10 o'clock.
All right. We'll talk next week about our Super Bowl predictions, but a fun weekend of football games, certainly. Real quick, in our Bogus Future, a couple things I want to hit here on our Bogus Future. Abe, you've sent to me a couple times over the last couple weeks these stories about George Carlin's estate and these podcasters, one of whom, Will Sasso.
Mad TV's Will Sasso?
As a Mad TV guy from the late 90s and early 2000s, I think.
He's also in Loudermilk that Netflix. Sometimes Netflix will just promote a show that they just got the license of, and he's in that too.
All right. Well, he has a podcast with some other guy who I don't think that I recognize from 1990s television. And their podcast, they have this thing where it's like a performance art thing where they pretend to have the whole thing created or curated in some fashion by an AI who they call Dudesy. And they allow that thing to be like their producer or something. I don't know. I haven't listened to the fucking thing. But long story short, they claim to have produced an hour-long set of George Carlin material by feeding into their proprietary AI system everything that George Carlin ever did in terms of his books and his stand-up, and then said, create an hour of stand-up based on George Carlin and do it in his voice using further AI voice techniques. And then they showed it. They put it on their YouTube channel. They produced a full hour-long set of George Carlin. Instead of showing like cartoony George Carlin doing it, they just flashed up different AI-generated images that related to the subject matter. I didn't watch the whole hour. I watched maybe the first 10 minutes of it or so and was not particularly impressed with the result. And I'd only seen it in the context of you sending it to me, which means that it had already made its way around the internet once or twice. Right. And so George Carlin's daughter had already reacted negatively to it in a sort of very personal way. She, it's like digging up her dad's corpse and fucking the body or something is one way to understand what was going on there. And I sympathize with her. I can imagine that being unpleasant. Anyway, as it turns out, their claim about it being a fully AI-generated thing is probably bullshit. And there'll be links in the show notes to a pretty good Ars Technica, which is a tech blog, breakdown of why this particular journalist believed before it came out that the whole thing was probably written by one of these two dudes, the non-Will Sasso of the podcasting duo, right. Why he believed that it was not, in fact, an AI-generated hour of content, but instead was just written by this guy and then performed by, much in the same fashion, one could imagine listening to a podcast like Cast Iron Brains and hearing the voice of a former president of the United States.
When they were in way better health.
When they were a much younger individual. and not necessarily believe that was actually Jimmy Carter who was talking to us. They did that with George Carlin. They got a voice to make it sound like him, but they fed their own bit into it, right? To try to convince people that it was an AI thing.
I will say it is interesting that in the court of public opinion, at least they thought that it was more defensible to claim AI came up with it.
So I don't know if it's a question of defensibility as much as it is them trying to do a bit. I think that they're doing a thing where they're trying to say, let's have a conversation about whether or not about the world that is to come. Like maybe that's giving them too much credit. I don't know. But
never, if that's the case, they never presented it that way, though, right? I mean, like when it first came out, I mean, they didn't present it in any kind of way. They just released it, but like they weren't saying like, oh, this is some scheme that we're doing. Right. They present it as if it's like an AI thing, and because the reason why I think like maybe they thought it was more defensible to take that approach or to say that, assuming that they wrote it, they're like, okay, we wrote this, but like we can't say that this is a imitation George Carlin enjoy. Like it wouldn't get any traction, right? But if we say that it was AI, but then in the court, and then also they don't have to defend. Then they don't have to defend the bad jokes. They can say, well, it's, if you don't think it was funny, it's because the AI did it, and it's not my fucking dumbass who did it, right? So it's plausible deniability on that front. But when they actually go to court, actual court, the feeding is the problem. You're feeding copyrighted works.
Right. So that's the end of the story here so far, is that they have now been sued by lawyers working with the George Carlin estate and George Carlin's family, saying you have violated George Carlin's intellectual property by feeding all of this stuff into an algorithm or an artificial intelligence, and then having it create from that IP new material, and then you're further using his name, image, and likeness to promote that in a way that is licensable, and therefore this is an actionable thing on our behalf because you did not license it from us. You have no right to him in that way. You're not doing a satire. You're not doing this is not fair use. You are simply trying to profit off of George Carlin's good reputation with his rather rabid fan base, or at the very least with his very famous name, and earn a buck off of that. And so now they have to go to court to defend themselves, which is why, in part, they've now admitted this wasn't an AI thing. This was just me doing my best imitation of what I think George Carlin would sound like in 2024. Right. I don't know that I have a whole lot further to say about it besides that. Again, I wasn't terribly impressed by the thing. It did sound sort of vaguely like George Carlin in the same way that my Jimmy Carter voice sounded vaguely like Jimmy Carter. So like neat, I guess. Yeah. It does raise at least a somewhat interesting question, like in terms of the future that we're in for, and along those same lines, I don't know if you saw, but Taylor Swift on Twitter had a bunch of pornographic images of herself as generated by these AI image generating things go around. They were viewed tens of millions.
We have such different Twitters.
No. First of all, I'm not suggesting that I saw those in particular. I read news stories about them in a similar way.
Yeah, me too.
I get all of my information from Judy Woodruff and the PBS NewsHour.
That's right.
I found a story about it from probably it was Judy Woodruff.
You were showing me how your Twitter is just all porn now.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to bring that up as well. My For You tab in the last few weeks has gotten so much worse. And the followers that I have are the same. I haven't followed anyone new or unfollowed anyone. It's just trying to generate more traction, more of my attention, I suppose. But I go to the For You tab, and I pulled it up for Lori, and I said, watch this. And I just refreshed it. And at the top of the screen, it was pornographic content in some fashion, like
no shit.
like clickbaity nonsense, and then like below it you click on it, or even a non-pornographic sort of thing as just a post about something else that's gone viral, like a fucking orangutan carrying oranges or something, inside this very popular viral post will be, in all likelihood, it is just algorithmically generated bots or whatever, but they're pushing pornography there too. Like in the replies to popular posts, inevitably, high up in the sort there is going to be OnlyFans links to like go sign up for my porno site on my OnlyFans or whatever. Like it's exploded just in the last few weeks. I don't think it's just me. How dare you?
I didn't say it was just you. It's just that I don't look at my For You tab. I look at only the things I choose to look at.
Right.
I'm pulling. So to be fair, I don't use Twitter a lot anymore unless I'm like looking for something specifically. But I went to the For You page, and thankfully, so far, the contagion hasn't reached my phone yet.
Abe is safe from Abe is marked safe from porn.
Getting a lot of like conference championship weekend content about Mahomes
so it might
and like
just
Purdy.
be you.
Yeah, perhaps it's just me. You never know. But if you go and look at any reasonably viral post, you will find, even if it's not pornography, you will find that the Twitter algorithm is sorting for completely unrelated content to the initial viral post.
It's like I was looking this morning, I don't know, some football, like last night, Chris Long posted something, and I clicked on it, and what I noticed is that I have the weird, like clearly unrelated stuff too. I just don't notice it.
Yeah, you
like
just don't even see it.
Like I see it as an ad, and I blow right past it.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. The point is that Twitter's getting worse, and this week, all over Twitter, were these viral photos of Taylor Swift naked at football games. The ones that I saw, which did come across my feed, were weird. Like she's in all Chiefs red head to toe face paint. Like she looks like Mystique from the X-Men, except as in
like
red,
a bodysuit kind of
right,
paint?
like a paint bodysuit or whatever. Like it was obvious to me that it was not an authentic image of Taylor Swift, and I knew it was going to be a big deal because they had many views, and apparently it took some tens of millions of views, but eventually Twitter finally got around to blocking the distribution of these photos. The point here, and the reason that I bring it up in the context of this other George Carlin conversation, is that this represents, and this is something that I've been harping on in the weather on the morning press a few times over the last couple of weeks. But we are on the verge, in a way that I don't think we fully appreciate yet, of an explosion of content that we will not have an ability to have any meaningful control over, because this current generation of AI operates when you go to Bard or you go to ChatGPT or you go to the Microsoft one, whatever it is, and you say, do this thing for me, right? They have not really unleashed these things to be creators on their own in a way that is coming, right? They're going to be, and the AIs will be able to teach themselves based on what gets feedback, based on what, in the same way that the algorithms on the social media things do. They will then get better at this, right? So when the goobers on this Dudesy podcast are talking about in the Carlin special, they're like, you think this is a problem? Just wait. In 5 years, comics won't be getting any work because you'll just be able to go turn on Freevee or whatever on your streaming app, and it'll be a 24/7 streaming channel of AI George Carlin and AI Sam Kinison and AI Bill Hicks and AI Richard Pryor and AI living comedians, AI Louis C.K., AI whoever the fuck, just giving a constant recitation of the day's news through their means of understanding the world, right? I think that's coming. In the same way that like we see this Taylor Swift deepfake porn on Twitter now, they can take it off Twitter all they want. If you go to 4chan or 8chan or other scary places on the internet that I legit
16chan.
Yeah, wherever it is. I don't know. I don't fuck around there, right? But people do. Like hundreds of millions of people do. And so this content is going to be accessible, and it's going to be everywhere. Right, we are just at the very the ocean's edge here of the content that is going to overwhelm everything when these models are fully released into the wild, and we just have no way of actually dealing with it. There will be a situation where people can take our photographs and with just 2 or 3 or 4 photographs, create entire movie-length disgusting pornographies of us doing stuff that we never did. Right? Like this is the ghost gun future that we're in for. Right? In the same way that when we talk about the Second Amendment, it's a completely nonsensical conversation to have in the situation that everyone has a 3D printer in their basement, right? Like the moment that the 3D printers take that leap to the next generation where they're that much cheaper and they're that much easier to have in your basement, it doesn't matter what the laws are, right? Because everyone's going to have the gun printing machine in their fucking basement, and it's a whole different conversation. In the same way, the deep fake porn revolution, it's fucking coming, right? And it's just going to take, they take one picture off your Instagram and all of a sudden you're Jenna fucking Jameson. Good luck dealing with that.
At the same time, like, okay.
But, there's already tremendous amounts of porn content already, right? And it hasn't contaminated the few places where people go, like, Twitter and, like, other websites. So, like, I don't think those companies would invite that sort of cluttering.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the inevitability, not of it overrunning Twitter or like Reddit. You used to be able to go on Reddit and you could go to a subreddit called Deepfakes, I believe.
Yeah.
And you could see all of these, like there was a community of people who created pornography for normal celebrities, right? So like Jennifer Lawrence has never been in a hardcore pornography shoot, as far as I know. But a few years ago, you could have gone on Reddit and found Jennifer Lopez or any of a number of other Jennifers, presumably, in compromised photographic situations. Reddit has decided we don't want that on our platform. We don't want that fucking heat, the legal heat that no doubt will come with that. But that does not stop 8chan from populating their servers with it, right? And no matter what sort of agreements the multinational companies come to, there's going to be somebody in fucking Montenegro or something who's perfectly willing to accept $100,000 for server space, right? Like there's always somebody willing in extra legal fashion to accept payment for illegal services or frowned upon services. There's not going to be any not to say that we won't be able to hide from it. Maybe we will be able to hide from it. But ultimately, the content is going to be out there, and I don't think that we're remotely ready for it.
I suspect it will remain segregated, but we'll see what happens. To me, like, kind of like with the gun issue, like guns will be available to such an extent that it's not going to be worth it for most people to get like a 3D printer, right? It's not going to be a situation where the demand for 3D printers will be there along with like a very strict gun environment, right? So like people who want guns will find it easier to get it the way they're getting it now. And so the marketplace won't really change when it comes to the ghost guns. Similarly, there's already a lot of just smut content on the internet now, and this is just more of it, and it'll just be wherever people seek it, and then all the other lanes will be what they are now. I could be wrong on this, but to me it seems like things will just be where they are. There'll just be more of it and different varieties of it. Maybe.
I think that there's something that we're not grappling with, which is that we're just not aware of how much content is coming. I don't have a good metaphor for it beyond like imagining whatever you imagine an ocean is, something that is so much more overwhelming. Like there's already an ocean of content out there in the content maw. Just wait until all of the computing power that we are currently sort of feeding a quarter into instead turns around and starts talking to itself back and forth, right? It doesn't need us anymore. It's just going to be creating this stuff, not even for us to interact with, but for itself to learn from, right? It's
Well, like in Her, when the girl meets the other
Right.
robots,
yes.
and everybody was fine.
Bob, do you see any comparison to, like, you can come up with like knockoff products, like apparel and like those bags that people buy, purses or whatever, and there's like this reinforcement mechanism where like, oh, those are knockoffs. So like basically like people like will shun the knockoff, even though they're there and they can be reproduced at an alarming pace. There's still this like, oh, those are no good. Like, you think there'll be something similar? Oh, that's the knockoff Dave Chappelle special. That's not the real, like, you bum, you can't afford Netflix. The Netflix one, he's wearing this kind of thing, or whatever. Like, you don't think there'll be some sort of, like, appreciation for the real thing?
Maybe.
And, like, all of the fake stuff will be just like, hey, get out of here.
Yeah, I hope so. I just wonder if it's not clear to me, and the Billboard Hot 100 game is one way to appreciate this over and over again, how much discernment there necessarily is in the average consumer.
Yeah. Actually, music will be so different. It will be that much different than what we have now. It's not particularly good now. The robots can't fuck it up, right? It'll just be more of the same.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, before the Billboard Hot 100
it's
game.
late. It's 10:23.
Look, maybe we'll save it for next week because we do not have a fresh Billboard Hot 100 for this week because that doesn't come out until tomorrow morning. So,
is Ben Shapiro eligible?
Yes, we're gonna save the Ben Shapiro. Abe, is it possible that you're not going to listen to the Ben Shapiro rap between now and next Monday?
Yes, unless somebody just like play.
You must
have you heard the latest
commit.
Ben Shapiro?
What if it's
because
like
you
what if it's
notoriously
like,
you're bad at a second take, so
Yes.
you need to preserve your virgin ears.
I will, yes.
From Ben Shapiro rapping, so that we can get a live reaction to that. So
I will not listen to it.
Can we just play Tommy Valentine rapping?
no, we're not going to do that either.
Why?
Because I don't have it handy.
You sure do. You have it over there on a CD.
That's true. So instead of getting into the Ben Shapiro of it all, we will instead play the Billboard Hot 100 game right now. I have rolled the dice. We are going to position number 18 in our years chart, which is the year 2000. And on the chart, we're going to position number 53. So we're number 53 on the Billboard Hot 100, and we'll be going back to the year 2000. As I said, this is the same. In the year 2000. This is the same Billboard Hot 100 chart as last week, I'm afraid, because it has not turned over. The song is called Feather at number 53, and it is by someone called Sabrina Carpenter. Does that ring a bell to either one of you?
Was she in the Rockin' You whatever? I thought that name sounds familiar. I'm not sure. I think I've seen her.
Was she in what?
The New Year's Eve thing.
Oh, not another thing.
Oh, it's like that. I'm your dream come true when it's on a platter for you.
No idea what we're going to get here. She's in church. This could be
Gonna try to make plans more than 2 hours in advance.
uplifting.
Slam the door, ignore, saying no, 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 no more. I got you blocked after this and afterthought. I finally cut you off. I feel so much lighter like a feather with you off my mind. Floating through the memories like whatever, you're a waste of time. You signals and bits, you act like a bitch. You fit every stereotype, send a pic. I feel so much lighter like a feather.
All right, that's a
Fine.
largely unremarkable pop song, I suppose.
The year 2000 is going up against? Oh, what if it's like a Christina Aguilera thing? Let's see, 50.
It might be. What if it is Christina Aguilera? Is that going to be okay?
We will go with the 23rd through the 29th, because that is today. Oof. I'm going to share my screen here, because there's a classic at number 1. Abe's favorite 2000s band.
I knew I loved you before I met you.
Oh, yeah.
Savage Garden, I Knew I Loved You at number 1. There's Christina at number
Christina.
2. Good call with What a Girl Wants. Santana's Smooth featuring Rob
So
Thomas at number
weird, because
3.
that's a summer song.
That is a song that lived on the charts for forever, as indicated
that
by the
was
fact
from
that
the previous year.
it had been on the chart for 27 weeks already.
Yeah.
Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, Destiny's Child, Foo Fighters. There's Mariah. Mariah is always here somewhere in the top 100. Little TLC, Sugar Ray. Scrolling and scrolling to number 53. We have ODB at number 53.
Okay.
Look at that.
Got Your Money. Old Dirty Bastard.
I could just sing
If you
it.
want to look good and not be bummy, girl, you better give me that money.
Baby, I got your money, don't you worry. I said, hey, baby, I got your money. Hey, dirty. Baby, I got your money, don't you worry. I said, hey, baby, I got your money.
Yo, so I glanced at the girl glanced at me. I whispered in the air, you wanna be with me? You wanna look pretty though in my video. Oh, dirty on the hat, and I let you all know. Just dance if you caught up in the Holy Ghost trance. If you stop, I'ma put them killer ants in your pants. I'm the ODB, as you can see. FBI, don't you be watching me. I don't want no problems, cause I put you down in the ground where you cannot be found. I'm just dirt dog trying to make somebody. So give me my streaks and give me my honey. Radios play this all day, every day. Recognize I'm a fool and you love me. None of you know, better look at me funny. No, you know my name down, give me my money.
Hey, dirty.
Sing it,
Baby, I got your money,
sing
don't you
it, girls.
worry. I said, hey,
Just sing it right
baby,
now.
I got your money.
If 31 is money, I think y'all should give him his money.
Baby, I got your money.
I feel like that's not fair.
No
This is not
fucking contest.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that song when I just at first read the title. But yeah, you got to be fucking kidding me. No contest at all. This one goes to ODB and the year 2000.
Sorry,
In the
Sabrina.
year 2000.
Do you disagree, Abe?
No. Unanimous.
That is the definition of what we're
Yeah.
doing here. This is a number 53 on the charts. It had already been at number. It peaked at number 33. It had been on the charts for 4 months already at this point. It was on its way back down. Technically a top 40 hit, but not really, right? Like just sort of barely scraping the top 40.
And this is a good comp because the Sabrina song, I assume, is from the now, and the Old Dirty song is from then. Like, it's not like a weird Taylor Swift
Yeah, it's
remake
not a
from
Taylor
6
Swift
years
song.
ago.
Or a
so it's like
cover.
a clean contrast between 24 years ago and now.
Right. That is, I can't say it's a fucking iconic song because it never got above number 33.
But
the
that's the
chorus to
thing,
that
it still
song
is.
in the brains of everyone who was
Oh, yeah.
alive at that
If you're-
time.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it goes so Forgot About Dre, number 55 this week. Untitled by D'Angelo at number 56. The Great Beyond by REM at number 57. Like, that's just the mid 50s of a random chart in 2000. And Everything You Want by Vertical Horizon. That fucking awful song.
Oof.
But holy shit, it's in my head. Like, I know all of these songs.
But that, okay,
Yes,
the Vertical
and
Horizon
arguably,
one.
because I'm fucking 17
Yeah,
at the
it's
time,
because
right?
that was
Like,
when we
yes.
were listening to the radio. The other ones are good, but the Vertical Horizon one is bad song.
Yeah.
And there isn't the that monoculture people talk about where, like, you just had just very limited avenues to hear this stuff, and now it's everywhere.
Right. I don't think that it's not like if I was a regular consumer of MTV and VH1 and the radio, I would be any more familiar necessarily with whatever that first one was.
You
It's
might
like
have
Feather by.
Feathers?
But it wouldn't have
But none of
stuck in
those-
my head
No.
to have decided that I wanted to know what it was. Like, even
No.
if I heard it on Sirius XM or whatever the fuck, or it came across my Pandora or however it is people listen to shit these days, it wouldn't have stuck out enough for me to want to go seek it out more in the future in the way that half a dozen other songs in the 51 through 59 would have in the year 2000. Anyway, great success for the Billboard Hot 100 game this week. I think goes without saying. ODB takes it down. We got a lot to talk about in terms of movies, so I think we will
have so much to talk about.
Move into the end game here. You've been listening to Cast Iron Brains, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Find the show on Substack at brainiron.substack.com, where you can sign up to become either just a regular old subscriber, so you get the daily morning press in your inbox whenever that goes live, and CIB as well, or become a paying subscriber like 2 more people did this week. Last week, 1 person became a paying subscriber. This week, 2 additional people became paying subscribers.
Thank you.
An argument could be made, exponential growth in that very small window. And if we just add 4 again next week, it'll continue in that fashion. So thanks a lot to Glenn and Catherine. People who know me will know those are also family members. But ignore that.
But it's none of their birthdays.
It's all money, and it all spends. So we are very much appreciative of you signing up over at Substack at brainiron.substack.com. I hope that everyone, I don't get very much feedback, to be clear. I hope everyone is enjoying the morning press. I thought last week's run of 5 episodes of the morning press were the best so far.
And if you people want me to get involved with that, you know what to do.
How are you going to get involved with that?
I don't know, but maybe more people would like it if I was involved. Just anecdotally.
Also, I'm not interested in feedback, because you know what? I'm not here for the people. I'm here to create something of interest and something good that if the audience comes to me, great. But I am not in the audience-seeking business. Thank you very much. I'm not that sort of person. I think
a person with an income is the kind of person you're describing.
I think that's clear. The opening and closing themes of the show are composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, TETRAMER music.com for more from him. Abe, I don't think there was a new movie that made it into wide release this week, at least not one that showed up in the box office charts that I looked at. Did you, nevertheless, make it to the movies this week?
I did. So this was a movie that was already released. I just didn't get a chance to see it. It was The Book of Clarence with like Keith Stanfield and some other people. It's kind of like a biblically based work of fiction kind of movie. Like it got decent ratings. I was like, or decent reviews rather. It wasn't a good movie because it was like one of those like movies where it's like all over the place. So like there's like one scene where it's like a serious like dramatic scene, and then like literally the next scene is like a stoner comedy kind of like this. Like it's just very odd how like and it was going back and forth like that the whole movie. Like they didn't know like the tone that they wanted to stick with, or just kind of like just jumbled a bunch of scenes together. It just didn't. Maybe I just was not in the right state of mind. I mean, I was there and sober, but it's just like maybe I was just tired. I don't know what it was, but like the movie didn't really track with me.
Gotcha.
Because it was just all over the place. It wasn't. I don't recommend it. It's not very good. It's very forgettable.
Produced by Jay-Z or Jay-Z's production company or something like that.
I did not know that.
But no good? That's too bad.
So the one thing I will say, so I have very limited knowledge of the Bible. I just, the Jesus and then the whole killing thing and then the coming back thing. So maybe there were some references in this movie that was like, oh, this is similar to this other book or whatever. I don't know. But
right.
If there was, it just went over my head because I don't know any of that.
Gotcha. We didn't watch True Detective this week yet.
We watched 3 movies.
By the time the football game ended on...
3 movies? I'm interested to hear these movies.
By the time the football game ended on Sunday night, it was time for bed. We didn't feel like staying up for another hour, so we'll catch up and hopefully have watched episodes 3 and 4 by the time we come back.
We can do, because there's no football.
Right, because there's no football. By the time we come back next week. All right. We watched 3 movies. We'll start with Barbie, which we watched first on Friday night.
Is this the first viewing?
We had not seen Barbie yet, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was fine. It was good. It was good. I smiled the whole time. That I wasn't like a little weepy. But like, if I'm smiling the whole time I'm watching a movie, how bad can it be?
I apparently made a huge mistake in my understanding of what to expect with this movie. I thought that Barbie was going to be good. This is my mistake. I didn't realize, and I should have, because every other billion-dollar movie that has come out in the last fucking 3 years has been bad. Like, actively, it's been bad. And for some reason, some combination of the discourse around it and the types of people who were excited about it, I thought, surely this billion-dollar movie is going to be good. That was the wrong expectation to have going into this movie, which is at best adequate as a piece.
It was fun
as a piece of entertainment.
Yes, that's why movies are.
But not good. Like, and the notion that this was that somehow someone at any point along the way got snubbed for not being up for the most important film awards that we award as a culture, that somehow the failure to recognize some of the work done for this movie, with the possible exception of, like, if the production, like the set designer didn't get a nod, or the makeup folks,
right,
or the costuming people didn't get a nomination, then I could see an argument being made from that perspective. But for anyone to get mad that, like, say, which the writing somehow did get a fucking nomination, but, like, had the writing not gotten nominated, not a problem. If the movie had not been nominated for Picture of the Year, definitely not a problem. And if the actress had not been nominated, also not, like, she's fine. Margot Robbie is fine. You know why she was good at this? Because she's a perfect looking human being. She's just a flawless physical specimen of human achievement in the realm of beauty, which is why she was good.
Well, and she's good at acting.
Yeah, and also she's
acted,
right. She's a perfectly good actress as well. I think she was very good in this. I wouldn't have changed a thing about her performance. I'm not sure that the performance required of her some great feat of acting might that we would.
What are you talking about?
That we
I'm
would
doing a dance number and I want to kill myself? That takes some acting training. Come on. How dare you?
I was so disappointed in this movie because it's written by very smart people and directed by people who are supposed to be good at this. And I was just expecting such a smarter, better movie from Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig than they ultimately delivered, when I should have realized, no, this was a billion-dollar popcorn movie. And but still, even recognizing that, at the end of the movie, I was just utterly perplexed by the idea that this movie received the amount of, not accolades, but popular support that it did, because I fully don't understand what made this so much fun for everyone else.
Oh, it was fun. The TVs hanging when the Kens took over and there were TVs everywhere. Fun.
It had its moments, but, like, there's nothing.
Also, Ryan Gosling was great. Every word that came out of his mouth was funny.
Sure, he's a charming guy. He's been in a lot of movies. None of them have made $1 billion fucking dollars. And same goes for Margot Robbie.
But this is like a lightning in a bottle kind of thing, just like that Oppenheimer and Barbie kind of. I think if Oppenheimer wasn't R-rated, that also would have made it even more money than it already did. But, like, it was just kind of like a moment in time. And
an argument can be made that Oppenheimer is a good and important movie. I don't think you can make the argument that this is.
I didn't smile like the whole time I watched it.
Yeah.
Like at all, like none smile.
It's just, it has none of the, like. It's like, what if, and I know this is a facile comparison because it's also a branded exercise in toy selling, but the Lego movie is clever and
so good.
And brilliant in ways that this movie, like, sort of hints at. Like, this movie's like, oh, I see what Lego movie did. Let's do a little bit of Lego movie here. In fact, let's get the Lord Business guy from Lego movie to be Lord Business here in this movie with Will Ferrell, and then not give him anything fucking interesting or funny to say except, like, two lines where the only reason that it's funny is because it's Will Ferrell, and I will just laugh at anything that Will Ferrell says because because of my broken brain from 1997. Like he has some weird power over me when Will Ferrell does something. I think it's
funny.
I think it's fucking hilarious, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I can't always point to a reason, but when Will Ferrell does it, it's fucking hilarious. But there was nothing in particular about this movie that made me think, wow, what a clever and brilliant subversion of this, or a twisting of that. This is a not very well executed fish out of water movie combined with a very boring politics, like a very uninteresting.
Boring to you. Again, you're different than most people, and you forget.
It's possible that it just didn't resonate with you, but you can see how it would.
Of course,
with others.
it's possible it didn't resonate with me, but it also like. Is it arguably trying to say something more interesting than anyone realizes, or is it actually as dumb as it seems? Because when they open with the 2001 A Space Odyssey nod as the opening scene, where girls always had these lame dolls where they wanted to be mommy, and then we gave them Barbie, and it turned them into violent fucking psychopaths. Like, is that the message that they're sending? That we have given you the monolith. You've eaten from the tree with the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, and now you're a fallen species in some way. Like, is there some sort of subversive critique going on there that then they just abandon, by the way, for the next 2 hours of movie? I don't know. Maybe there is.
Okay, well, that was one movie we watched. I enjoyed it.
Go ahead, Abe. You've got more to say.
That scene, they used it at least for the teaser trailer, like early on, because every one of these movies I've seen like 20 times the trailer, because I'm there, and so like they would use that scene, and I just thought that it would be a scene that they would use for trailer purposes only, but not actually use it in the actual movie. And so when I saw it, because I was like, what is the connection? It was just kind of a throwaway, like. It would be a nice kind of like, ooh, they're doing a Barbie movie, and that would be that. But like to actually include it in the actual movie didn't make sense.
Right, it makes no sense unless it is an attempt to be super subversive of everything that follows, right? Which I really highly doubt.
Did you have any criticisms? I know there's two other movies, but did you have any criticisms of the America Ferrera monologue? I think she's getting like supporting actress nods.
If she wins for that, it is simply a nod. Like
but that's always what everything
is. A mediocre
is.
Television show of a monologue that she was given.
Remember Alec Baldwin, like in the Sales movie, like fuck you, that's my name. Like second place gets whatever. Like Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yeah.
It was like a 5-10 minute scene, and I think he won an Oscar for because it was such a
deservedly so.
Yeah. So this is not that.
No, are you fucking kidding me?
I agree with you. I'm just asking.
She's gonna win, and I'm gonna be furious about it. I
but
don't
it was a
get
nice
it.
Little scene,
I fully don't get it. Anyway, we watched The Holdovers the next night. We watched the Paul Giamatti Christmas movie. Had you seen that one?
I watched some of it. I need to watch the whole thing.
You do. This was a wonderful movie. This
it looked pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And is it a revolutionary piece of filmmaking? Absolutely not. It tells a story that we've heard before. Yes. Here's the difference between Barbie and The Holdovers.
There's a lot of differences.
The Holdovers, despite dealing with sort of familiar tropes, much in the same way that the Barbie movie does, treats its characters like people. And in the specificity of those characters reveals universal truths about the human condition. Like art should. It treats its characters with respect enough for them to be likable and highly unlikable, for them to be interesting and complete human beings by the way that they are treated by the writers and the filmmakers, which is the opposite of the way that the characters in the Barbie movie are treated, which is like ideas and only in the general, which reveals nothing universal to the human condition.
But isn't that the point of Barbie, that she's just an idea?
And instead tells this specific point of view of one idiot person's politics or ideology, which is, by the way, the opposite of art, right? One of them is art, and one of them is doing the opposite of art. And if your response to that is, well, but that's just what Barbies are, and therefore they're doing the Barbie thing, well, then you have failed to create meaningful art, and all you've done is sold a plastic fucking doll. One of these movies understands that all people are people, right? That any person is capable of experiencing the full range of the human experience, whether it's the sad black lady who had her child killed in Vietnam, who's now the cook at the school, or whether it's the sad, lonely teacher guy who's been miserable his whole fucking life and everybody knows it but him, or whether it's the sad 16 or 17-year-old kid who feels like he's been abandoned by the world. Those are all valid human experiences, whether they're white or black, whether they're male or female. They're all permitted to have full lives as human beings, and because they all experience pain in the same way, even though one of them might, on the spectrum of privilege, might have it a little bit easier in the grand scheme of things. We recognize that in the context of human life, of the experience of a human life, that shit doesn't fucking matter, and that the experience of you as a valid human being is about you and your experience, and it's not about the external constraints put upon you by the people who are trying to tell your story or tell you that your story doesn't fucking matter because of the immutable characteristics that you bring to the table that the society has decided define you. That matters. The rest is politics. Politics is not representative of life. The Holdovers is representative of life in a way that matters. And then it frees you by virtue of being about human life. In the specificity of that experience of these characters, it tells you universal truths and then invites you as the viewer to figure out what else might be going on here in this world around them, right? So you can watch The Holdovers and you can say, I don't think that this was necessarily inserted by the filmmaker, but in every single scene, in every single way, the lives of these people as they're living, you can see reflected in those lives the degradation of institutional trust that people have in important institutions that we used to trust and that we can't trust as much anymore, right? The experience of the black lady cook who says who went to work for this school so that he could get reduced tuition or a scholarship to go to this fancy prep school so that he could then hopefully get a really good education and then go on to college.
Son. You didn't say her son.
Her son, right. So she works in the school so that her son can get a good education at the prep school so that hopefully he can be better prepared for the world. And the institutions fucking failed him because he wasn't able to get enough tuition assistance to go to school, so he was therefore drafted, and he goes to Vietnam and he fucking dies. Whereas the white kids who had the exact same experience, who aren't even necessarily as talented natively as he was relative to the way that they were born, they get to go to fucking Princeton, or they get to go to fucking Cornell because daddy can cut the check, right? And that's not fucking fair, and that's a failure of our institutions to treat people and to elevate people in the way that they should be elevated, and it's not fucking fair, right? Obviously. And then you have this other guy who goes off to Harvard and gets unjustly accused of being a plagiarist and ultimately gets kicked out of school because of it, because the guy who accused him of being a plagiarist is a senator's fucking daddy. And like, that's another critique of institutional failure in a way that matters. And then you have the young boy whose father is institutionalized and can't be properly treated because of that. And that's another failure of an institution that fucking matters. And then he pops his shoulder out and they have to go to the fucking hospital, and they're worried that by filling out all this goddamn paperwork, it's going to cause trouble. So instead they're like, let's just pay cash. That is utterly inconceivable that a person now, 50 years later, could walk into a hospital and just hand over a couple of $100s to get out of having to fill out a bunch of paperwork and raise a bunch of red flags that they don't want raised, because the institutions have fucking collapsed in the last 50 years. And that's just me having a stray thought after watching a deeply emotional and important movie about three human beings that invited me to interact with this piece of art in an interesting way that maybe wasn't even necessary. It certainly wasn't the text of the movie, but was plausibly the subtext of the movie in an interesting way that has now stayed with me over the course of the last 3 days, because it was art, because it was something that invited me to engage with rather than sitting me down and trying to tell me a lecture based on a Feminism 101 class that this person took, or an understanding of what they thought the public would want to get out of a Feminism 101 class, because it didn't even engage with the conversation in the way that a Feminism 101 class would have. That went on way longer than I thought it would.
Yeah,
but the
well,
Holdovers,
that's what you're like.
The Holdovers is a great movie that only by contrast with Barbie. It's just a good movie.
I smiled like 20% of the time.
It's a good movie for grown-ups to have an interesting experience with, which is not what you can say about the billion-dollar-making Barbie. I encourage everyone to watch it.
They're both, I mean, like I said, I'll watch the whole Holdovers movie, but the Barbie movie was what it was. It was enjoyable. I don't know what's wrong with that. It didn't need to be everything. It could just be a movie.
It doesn't need to be everything. You're absolutely right. One of them is art. One of them is attempting to engage the viewer
you said it
in
already.
Interesting ways, and the other one is not.
What is the
last
third
one?
movie?
Fucking Saltburn.
Oh, yeah. Then we
the
watched,
interesting one.
Then we watched Saltburn.
Oh, boy, that movie. Whew.
It was great. That was great. You know
This
what?
is the
You
exact
said it doesn't have to be anything. That's what I said to maybe Bob, maybe Julia. What I liked it is like, hey, here's a movie. It's not garbage, but it's
Right.
not amazing.
Right.
It's
a
just
movie,
here's this. Loved it.
The bathtub scene, I was like, all right, that's fine. You know, I guess it speaks to this character. When he started fucking the dirt, I was like, all right, this is
A
too
little
much.
more fucked up, but like,
This is too much.
whatever.
I have no problem with a movie trying to scandalize its audience, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make it a bad movie or anything like that. This
Alone is not, does not make it bad.
This was, I thought, an interesting movie in a way that we don't often see in mainstream movie making anymore, right? You don't often get the grown-up art house sort of movie in a way that you might have 20 or 25 years ago. Or if you do, you certainly don't get it as part of a major
You don't get it pretty.
major release from a big-time studio.
Big budget pretty.
Right, and this was gorgeous. The movie was beautiful. It was well shot. It was tremendously well acted all around.
Rosamund Pike, is that her name?
Yeah, the Gone Girl.
She was fucking incredible.
The Gone Girl chick plays the mom in this movie and steals every scene in a movie that is exquisitely acted throughout. She somehow stands out above the rest. The kid who was in one of my other favorite movies from last year, Barry Keoghan, he was in The Banshees of Inisherin last year. He's in this.
Oh, yeah.
He asked the girl out and he killed himself after not succeeding. Is
Right.
that the one?
What a terrific actor this kid is in the face. Like, he does a lot.
He's
with the face that really works. He's a very good, subtle actor, and I look forward to seeing him in things for many years to come.
He's in the Masters of the Air, the new Apple show.
Okay.
Speaking in an English accent, you know.
He also, or rather this movie, also commits what I see as an unforgivable sin in its last 5 minutes.
You and Roger Ebert agreed on this.
Roger Ebert has been dead a long time.
The other one, well, what did I just read?
I don't know, but Roger Ebert has been dead for some time now.
Like, one more thing.
Well, whoever's reviewing movies on RogerEbert.com, Christy Lemire.
That's just
that
being
was my plot of land.
A zombie website being kept alive by
Well, someone agreed with you.
the Roger Ebert brand. I'm sure plenty of people agree with me.
Yeah, and some of us are not very smart.
All right,
so
I'm trying to think, what is the unforgivable?
So this movie, it goes through and it's telling you a story from the perspective of not knowing the inside of Barry Keoghan's character's head, right? Like we seem to be operating from essentially his point of view, but we are not given his internal life in any way, right? So we have to interpret what he's doing in much the same fashion that the other characters in the movie are being tasked with interpreting his actions. And as it turns out, spoilers here if you'd like to stop and go watch the movie. I think it's worth a watch if you're a grown-up. It's on Amazon. Is it Prime? I think it's on Amazon.
we watched it on Amazon.
Yeah, I think it's available for free if you're already a Prime subscriber. Or is it – are you sure it's not Peacock? Holdovers was on Peacock.
Holdovers was
anyway,
Peacock.
If you want to go watch it, go watch it. But ultimately, the big reveal at the end is that our main character here has been the bad guy all along.
Orchestrating all of
Right.
this. Yeah.
He's orchestrated the entire situation down to committing multiple murders in order to get what he wants from these people, which is he's the
Which is everything.
right, which is just everything. The plot of the movie is that he's a middle class guy who portrays himself as a slightly less than middle class guy at Oxford and wants to be in the rich kids club with all of the legacy admissions to Oxford rather than being the smart kid from the suburbs or what have you.
I'm using, by the way, that the person that made it on their own is looked down on. Like, you tried.
Yeah.
Right.
You're here because
An
of that.
interesting inversion of
Yeah.
our sort of current political understanding of things, right? Which is that we're supposed to be mad and want to eat the rich, but in this case, it turns out
No,
that
we are the lower class. We do want to eat the rich. The rich do not want to be eaten.
it's not often that you would expect the sympathies of the modern cinema to align with the 0.1%, as they ultimately do in this.
Well, to be fair, he's
Movie.
fucking them over. I mean, I'm not
Right.
against the rich like that.
It's just that those characters, that's real life, is that the rich people look down upon the not rich people.
Right. Well, and in this case, for good reason, because Oliver
Yeah.
decides to.
Well, most of us are murderers.
Right. So Oliver kills Felix with cocaine, essentially. He then stages the suicide of the sister. He then. I don't know if we're supposed. The one thing
dad
I'm
kills
not clear
himself.
on is if the dad actually killed himself, or we didn't get
yeah.
confirmation that he might have played some role, or if he felt that he had pushed on that falling tree enough already for it to go over the rest of the way. And then he arranges it such that he ends up back in mom's life and ultimately poisons and kills her as well. And the problem that I had is that in the final 5 minutes, we get the full-on flashback scene where we cut back to, how did he masterminded the flat tire so that he would run into the Jacob Elordi, Felix character, at just the right moment so that he would then be able to trade bikes with him and weasel his way into the friend group that he otherwise didn't belong in. He pretended not to have the extra $50 to pay for the round of shots so that Felix would feel compelled to come over and do him a favor and therefore further bring him into the thing. Like, we don't need I know that
I need.
Here's the thing. Even if you are a viewer who does not somehow, like Lori, at the end of this movie suspect that Oliver has been masterminding or orchestrating all of this in some way, just with the reveal of him being in that cafe at the exact right time and then goes on to kill. Like, I would have been fine with them being explicit with him going on to kill the Rosamund Pike character as they do if they had just left the flashbacks out, right? I would have loved the movie, I think, like 10 times more if they had just let her die on the hospital bed without him doing the big dramatic, I'm going to rip the trach tube out of her and allow her to suffocate in front of me. Like, I would have loved it if he was just sitting in that room giving his monologue about how much he did or didn't love Felix, and then she flatlines and dies. And it's like, holy shit, did he or didn't he orchestrate this whole thing? And then you can have a fucking conversation about it. It's an interesting movie to talk about if they don't spell out for you that he put a thumbtack in the guy's tire and then he was thumbing his money away so that you couldn't see, and then this and then that, and he puts the fucking, they do a shot of him gently placing the razor blades on the tub's edge where she's still swimming in a pool of her own blood. It's so completely unnecessary to handhold us in that way if you're going to do the rest of the thing with the movie. That's the unforgivable sin. That's what takes it from a B+, A- super interesting movie down to, like, to me, a B-, C+ sort of thing that I will have such minimal interest in revisiting this movie again in the future. Whereas before, I think I would have wanted to go back and rewatch it again to see what I missed the first time.
If you didn't want viewers to be left to leave it like it could have gone either way. Like if you wanted to drive the point home that he would be behind all of this, like how would you substitute the hand-holding scenes with the flashbacks and everything? Like how else? Like he's gonna say something sort of callback to indicate whatever he was pretending to be is not true. Like there has to be some other scene, because this is not a big enough movie to where they did like a focus group and they're like, what the fuck is going on? And then like, they added that part.
Didn't you watched this movie? Did you not get to the end? And then before the big reveal, were you not already highly suspicious of whether?
Yes, highly suspicious. So where I went before they spelled everything out was like I was like, how far back does it? And then I guess the whole thing was a thing. But
you just said
right. But them showing up and shoving the final piece of the puzzle into place for you, that didn't like if it satisfies in the moment, like if there's a momentary like satisfying click of everything coming together, does that justify taking away the question from you? For me, in this case, it absolutely does not.
What you just said about you'd want to revisit it, I wonder if... I know that I don't watch nearly as many things more than once as I used to. And maybe it's because I'm old and busy, but also maybe it's because there's so much shit we don't have as much time to rewatch things. So it might be that they're making movies now never expecting you to give it more than a first glance.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we just have too much stuff. Because I want to watch these movies over and over again, but I don't have time because I need to watch the other ones.
Yeah. There was something about... and that's the thing. It was so clever in its grammar and in its presentation and in its references that I thought all along that I knew not to trust this guy, right? It opens in Salieri fashion, right? With the guy direct to camera giving a confession of a sort, right? It's like, okay, I suspect that we have on our hands a bad guy who might be up to nefarious purposes here. That was my impression because of my understanding of film history and just the grammar of cinema, right? Like you knew right away that something was skewed here with this guy. And then you go and you watch the whole fucking movie and it justifies that because it's a really, really well done movie. But then to have them grab you by the hand and show you, look, number 1 was here and number 2 was here and there was number 3. You were right, champ. You figured it out. Yeah. Like, fuck off. Get out of here. This was a great movie that you just fucking ruined for me. Why did you do that? Because there's a legitimate couple of really fun moments, even though I saw them coming, when he gets him into the car and he's like, let's go see your parents. It's like, well, fucking, we're about to find out that the jig is up here. Right. This guy's dad's not dead and mom's not a fucking junkie. That's for goddamn sure. I don't know.
I thought we were going to show up to a junkie woman's house. Like, you're better at this than
right,
way
but what
most
I'm saying,
people.
The surprise of that moment is like, holy shit, that's the moment where Edward Norton says in Fight Club, oh, fuck.
We have just lost cabin pressure.
Like the plane has lost cabin pressure and the world has fallen out from under me, and you start putting the pieces together. That's the moment where you start figuring out that everything is not as it seems. Right. You do not need further information than that. It just takes away something from the interesting. I don't even mean revisit it in terms of going back and watching it again. I'm thinking about the conversation from the theater seats to the parking lot and then home. Like, what is the conversation? You're reduced to having a conversation about this movie to the extent that a conversation is being had about it. It's about the gross out stuff rather than it being an actually good movie. It's like, boy, that sure was gross when he slurped up the dirty bathwater, and that sure was weird when he fucked the grave, right? Like, that's all that anybody talks about when they talk about this movie.
I don't know what's wrong with me or what's wrong with everything, but when I hear that there are like shocking, gross scenes in a movie, I was prepared for so much more than just that. I'm just like, oh, it's a bath water. It's fine. It's clean, basically.
Yeah.
Like it's People need to calm down, is what I'm saying. Calm down.
Well, as Savage said about that bathtub scene in particular, he's like, you know why everybody is freaking out about the bathtub scene is just projection, right? Like the you're raising much more of a stink about licking the dirty bathtub water than you are about fucking a grave, because you can't see yourself ever going out into a wet field where someone has recently been buried and trying to fuck the ground. But you fucking sickos can definitely see when your horny brain takes over, slurping up some disgusting bathwater.
I can't imagine that. I mean, I don't know about people's personal. That's fucking ridiculous. Like, people would want to do that. Like,
the lady doth protest too much there,
people
Abe.
are acting like it's the most shocking thing they've ever seen, and like it's not.
No. Anyway, am I wrong to be that upset about? I mean, granted,
You're wrong to be the amount of upset that you are about everything.
I loved the way it looked. I love that there's a very Barry Lyndon feel to it, because it's shot. First of all, it's shot in that aspect ratio that just makes everything bigger. Like, it's not shot in portrait exactly, but it is shot in 4:3, which gives you the big postage stamp version of it, which doesn't act. I mean, it's hard to explain unless you actually know what you're talking about, and I only do to a small amount. The aspect ratio of it's just this giant stamp of a square there. He's obviously trying to recall Kubrick in the way that this thing is shot. The woman, sorry, I don't know who made this fucking movie. They're trying to recall Kubrick in various ways. Again, I got a Salieri from Amadeus feel from the very beginning. Like, to me, it's informed by and trying to be in conversation with much better, ultimately, movies. And to me, it was like this close. And except for that one thing at the end, it just sort of it takes the rug out from me in a bad way.
Maybe there'll be a director's cut where they leave it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they'll have. They'll
anyway, you didn't like it as much. I take it.
No, I think just I don't. Not that I need to relate to anybody. Just that guy who's like trying to like fucking ingratiate himself to like the upper crust of these assholes or whatever. I just don't like. I think it was. This may speak ill of me, but like when his like roommate, like another like out, like when he was like, he could have gotten into the group. Like, it was like, hey, you helped me with the bike thing the other day, come join. And like his buddies, I mean, they don't know each other that well, but like he just pretended he didn't know him. I'm like, this guy's a total piece of shit. Like, you can't just wave him in, at least just for this one sitting, not in future sittings. You can't help him out. So I was not.
They lost you when he
I was like, fuck this
when he
guy.
said to his autistic nerd friend to like bugger off.
Yeah, I just told him fuck off, and I was like, I don't like this guy. And then like when he did all the bad things, like, oh, of course he would do such a thing.
Ask me a sum.
Yeah, that guy was a real psycho. I don't know why you feel bad about leaving that guy behind. That guy sucked.
He didn't know that.
Is that it? Is that all we got?
Yeah, we watched 3 movies.
We did. We watched
days.
3 movies. It's the beginning of my trying to watch all of the Oscar movies.
The beginning of my trying to watch movies that make me smile.
Now, sadly, I don't think that Saltburn was nominated for anything, which surprises the shit out of me, because it was beautifully shot and beautifully composed, and I would have thought,
because these things are almost random.
I know, but I would have thought that this was the sort of movie that would get some sort of production design nod or something, but it
was
did
shot
not.
out completely. That's interesting. I didn't.
Unless I missed it on the list somewhere.
Yeah.
They have to say, nominate me for an Oscar. And that's what I liked most about that movie, is that it wasn't trying to be anything that it wasn't.
The performances were all spectacular. And the fact that none of the acting performances got nods is a goddamn shame, because I can't imagine that there were a whole ton better performances in movies this year. Rosamund Pike was a hell of a lot better than America Ferrera was in the fucking Barbie
everything.
movie. That's for sure. But we've now seen Barbie, The Holdovers, and Oppenheimer of the 10 movies that have been nominated for Best Picture.
How many weeks do we have left? 3?
Like 5 or 6? It's like March 10th.
5 or 6 weeks.
We got a while. That's right. It's March, because I got COVID after the Oscars last year, because it was also daylight savings time. So it was both the daylight savings time and the Oscars that gave me COVID.
The Oscars have been on as early as February, right? Like
that's what I think of.
I don't know what their calendar, how it works, but sometimes it's in late March. Sometimes it's in February.
Yeah. I think right now,
March 10th.
Currently, we have access to Killers of the Flower Moon on Apple TV.
I'm not watching that.
And Maestro on Netflix.
I don't want to watch that either.
Yeah, look forward to...
I have not seen Maestro either. That's like a Netflix thing, right?
Yeah, that's on Netflix. Lori's mother told us that she watched the first 20 minutes or so of Maestro.
Hi, Mom.
And was...
I'm going to make fun of you now.
I don't think she's listening. And was disappointed because she'd seen an interview with that Bradley Cooper who really sold it as a really great picture. And that people should, he's really excited to get people to go watch it because he spent the last 5-6 years of his life focused on it. And he's really proud of it. And he's really excited for people to go see it. And she watched the first 20 minutes or so and is mystified and disappointed by the fact that he was so insistent that people go watch this movie. And I was like, so you're saying that the director and producer and writer and star of this movie really wanted you to go watch it, and your complaint is that he was overselling it? Because
although if you can judge like a 2-hour plus movie like in that didn't speak very well of that movie, right? I mean, if it's just like, oh God, I can't sit through.
Right,
more
no,
of
I
this
understand not liking a movie. That's fine. I'm just surprised that. To me, it would be like watching a Burger King commercial and then going to pick up a Whopper and being mad that it wasn't as good as it looked in the commercial. Like, what? Are you 5? Like, what are you talking about?
Bradley Cooper, maybe he's like an honest broker.
This is the way
maybe
of the
he
world.
tells you the truth. You're like, this third.
Maybe that's
movie,
it. Maybe she has been steered correctly by Bradley Cooper before. And he has now broken that trust, and that's a shame. That's
hard to get that back once it's broken.
Shame on you, Bradley Cooper, because as Lori will be quick to say, you fool Lori's mother once. Shame on.
You're doing it wrong.
Hey, but have you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
Well, I guess that's all we've got for tonight then, and we'll talk to you next time.
Later.
Anyway, it's an interesting podcast. I gotta say, fuck you, Bob, you piece of shit. The good and the bad. So the good, I loved. I think.
So Lori's the fillet. That's the fillet.
Yeah.
Lori's great. She doesn't know what she's talking about at times, but Lori's great for the most part. She's a star.
But Bob gonna cut you.
Son, you about to get fucking shot, bro.
Coming after my girl too.
Listen. She's the star of the show, but when it comes to like certain sports,
what's next, Maggie? You gonna shit on Papa John's too? Why you at
I'm not shitting. Listen, I'm a big fan of. I'm a fan of Lori. Fuck Bob. Okay, so let's just make that very clear. Okay?
Oh, the remix to the Fuck Simon track.
Yeah,
Fuck
yeah.
Bob.
So, fuck Bob. But anyway, it was just it was fun to listen to something different. How did he fucking talk about Taylor Swift, dog? She's America's sweetheart. You fucking asshole.
I don't know about that now. She ain't a buffer sweetheart.
She's overexposed a little. You can agree.
Yeah. She is a little overexposed. But she making some. She showed is making a whole.
Oh
lot
man,
of money.
$1 billion tour. Good lord.
I'm sorry I cut you off there. Any other shitting on Bob thoughts?
No. Other than that, man, thanks for listening, Bob. You should listen to our show more often.
After you just shat on this nigga?
Please.
No, I'm telling him to listen to our fucking show so he can get better at his craft.
That's true, man.
So the good things. Let me just make this quick. Intro was much better. The clarity of their show was much better. The downside is Ham starts off the show with this weird like "Hi, Bob" or some shit that he does. You know
what is your intro? Yep, here we are. What is it?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, doing well. Yeah.
Oh my god, the fuck!
What's wrong with being?
I gotta listen to this shit.
It's just weird because like one show is so black and the other show is so white, and then you know.
I don't see race when it comes to podcast medium.
But Ham is like an Oreo, like he kind of smushes it together, you know, like it just.
If anything, black. I mean, Bob is probably blacker than Ham is. Come on, let's be honest.
I'm sure he defended Martin Luther King. Come on, dog. That's pretty black. That's pretty black, or guilt white guilt. You know. So either way, it was still more black than what Ham would have done.
That's right.
So.
Shots fired, Bob.
That's my fillet.
divorced, which is a fucking bummer. Yeah.
Don't they work in a similar field? Not that that's a weird consideration, but like, withdraw that last thing. It's
a shame you can't use that. That's so sad.
Don't they work in a similar field?
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.